Okay, with the hour being after 7 o'clock and a quorum of the board, we'll open the meeting of October 17th. And we are going to wait on the minutes. And we'll go to other business. So the Board of Selectmen has requested a member from the Planning Board to serve on the Townhouse Reuse Committee. Everybody should have gotten the description of the committee. And the townhouse is the old town hall, and the town is interested in studying the potential reuse of that, and they're looking for a member of the planning board. So we'll open it up to the board to see if there's anybody interested in serving.
I would love to do it, but I don't know if it's a conflict of interest because I'm sort of in a butter, so I think I have to step back.
I would be interested.
You would be interested?
Do we know when they're meeting, or?
I'm not sure. So
Unless there's not a conflict. Yeah. Okay, I don't know. Yeah.
I think it would be better if since the question exists, that I step back.
Yeah.
Okay, so just to review, so we have from the Board of Selectmen their mission statement, and it's to review options for reuse of the townhouse building and property, and to provide a plan of action to the Board of Selectmen, including but not limited to consideration and investigation of options for ownership, alternative funding sources, and potential zoning code bylaw revisions or amendments, where I think somebody on the planning board could particularly be helpful. They've questioned whether the town should create an overlay district or other such options to help spur investment downtown. So, Phil, you'd like to put your name in? Okay. John, do you want to consider it, or?
I don't have any issues with it, no.
Okay. So, any further discussions, or we can vote on nominating Phil to represent the planning board? Okay. So I'll make a motion to nominate Philip Chekorowski to serve as the planning board representative to the Townhouse Reuse Committee.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, 400.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Phil. Okay.
We're gonna do Pembroke Street. We will accept, if this is wrong by any chance, we'll just re-sign it, but we need to go to vote the tripartite in the amount of $75,000.
Okay. I apologize, I should mention, our illustrious chairman is on his way, so he shall be joining us shortly, where he will resume the post of chairman. Okay, next on the business is 173 Pemberton Street, and this is Form I and bond. So we have here a tripartite agreement, and we can take a vote to accept the tripartite.
And who's the agreement with?
This is with Walsh Brothers and the town and the bank,
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
sure which bank, does it say which bank?
and Norwood Bank.
Okay, Norwood Pull-Up.
And this has been checked by finance.
It went to her, but I didn't receive anything back, so, and it's been quite a while, so
Okay. And if there's any issues, we can
pull it back.
pull it back. Okay. So I'll make a motion to accept the tripartite agreement on 173 Pemberton.
Does it have an amount, and has that been checked? or-
That's
$75,000.
bond, and we'll vote on that next. That's $75,000 bond.
Okay.
But first, we'll just vote on the tripartite.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, there being none. vote to accept the tripartite. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
400.
And there's the release of Form F.
Okay, and then we have a Form I, release of covenant. And that's,
The
From our-
tripartite's gonna be in its place, so it's just a vote to release the Form F.
okay. So vote to release it with the date of October 4th. Motion to release the covenant. Any further discussions?
No.
Okay,
So, quick question, so, we started off with a $75,000 bond?
we haven't got to the
We
bond
haven't-
yet.
Okay, so we're
Yeah.
still, okay, so
Yeah.
just want to make sure I understand that.
Somebody like to second the release of covenant?
Second.
Okay. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Okay.
opposed?
Now,
So
everybody's
400.
gonna sign that page and the second page of the tripartite.
Okay,
I need the 4 signatures.
okay.
And that's it.
But we didn't do the bond.
That is the bond. The tripartite is the bond.
Oh. You told me the bond was at the end.
No?
Okay.
No. But This,
Okay,
this
so-
releases
Yeah,
the tripartite.
yeah.
So they're just gonna sign the back page. You scared me. Sign the Form I and the back page of the tripartite.
Okay, okay.
Everybody
And the
has to- it's-
tripartite is the 75,000.
It's in the amount of 75.
Okay. Right, I'll start. Give that to Phil. Okay. So that's all set. We can mention about the consultant options. That's where we're looking to hire an engineering firm to provide some services to the planning board in reviewing plans and submittals. And we are currently still awaiting some information from those engineering firms that we had requested the information. So there's nothing really ready to discuss tonight.
It will be on November 7th.
Yeah, so we'll put that on the agenda for November 7th, and we will consider what is submitted and hopefully take a vote.
Community good cash, it's not time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What did you say
We didn't
about
do
Elm
Elm
Street?
Street.
Should I do the 100 Elm Street? Or wait till
I'm not sure. Kyle can probably speak to that.
He probably doesn't want to, but he can. Carl,
Carl,
So,
what do you know regarding 100 Elm Street?
100 Elm Street actually includes 100 West Street as well, because there's 2 parking lots that were designed and approved as part of, I believe, 95 West Street. The plans were approved by the planning board in the spring of 17, but the applicants never came back and got either any of the plans endorsed. And your conditions stipulate that must occur within 60 days, I think, of the appeal expiring. Ms. Delaney inquired with town council, and there was some dialogue back and forth, and council's opinion was that they could not endorse the plans once the 60 days is gone. And essentially, and I'm gonna summarize and paraphrase, they're going to have to go through, re-advertise, and re-site plan approve both those lots. Of course, that should be a fairly easy process because all the review has been done, but they're still gonna have to go through, evidently, they're still gonna have to go through the process to do that, to get endorsed site plans. It's a bit of a strange situation, as one parking lot is essentially done, the other one's probably 70%, if not more, complete, may even get top coat this weekend. So we're in a little bit of odd ground here.
Yeah,
We're essentially gonna be endorsing, or you will be endorsing, plans for parking lots that are constructed.
What's the name of the road?
That's correct.
so they will have to come back before the planning board for site plan.
I believe so.
Only for the parking lots? Only for the
whole
parking
project, for the whole
issues?
project.
That's what we're seeing, but I'm not sure that, I would assume, I'm not sure that any of the plans got endorsed, but I don't really wanna, talk that up too much, because I know the parking lot plans didn't, but I'm not quite sure what was, if the site,
The Corcoran site plans were endorsed.
okay, so strike what I just said, it's just for the parking lot, so that's the answer to
Okay.
your question.
Okay.
Um,
Okay, so, do we need to like send a letter to them, letting them
No, they're all
know?
aware of what's going on
Okay.
through town council.
Okay.
My question was, and Kyle and I spoke about it briefly, the town council had said in her letter that she thinks the applicant to modify that condition and the planning board should hold a public hearing and review that request. So it's almost like a whole new hearing that they have to submit in a butters list. But my
Do they
question
have to
was.
pay the fees?
Yes, but my question was, is it a modification, minor or major? I don't know how to, I don't know.
Mm.
But where Kyle brought up a good point today, when he said there's actually no site plan in place because they didn't follow through. So
Right.
it's
Yeah, so how can you have a
you
minor
can't,
or a
you
mo-
Yeah.
can't, which is what we talked about. So it's a new hearing.
a new hearing?
It seems that way, but we can pursue those lines of thought a little bit further with council to see exactly what what has to be done.
Okay.
So I wasn't on the board when that was approved. If you wouldn't mind if I just clarify, were the parking lots done as a separate site plan from the building?
Yes,
They were.
yes.
Because they're owned differently, aren't they?
That's correct. I believe there are different owners and agreements for use between the owners. And they are actually somewhat removed from the building site. One is across the street directly on West Street.
Mhm.
The other is literally around the corner off of Elm Street across the railroad tracks.
Now, since parking is a requirement, did one hinge upon the other?
That's an excellent question. It would appear that, that it would appear that they're, even though they're individual approvals, that they're all connected.
And it doesn't put the original site plan for the building in jeopardy? If it hinged?
Good question.
Yeah, what if we somehow didn't approve it?
Right. There's just so many
Then
questions I have
There's
spinning.
not adequate
Yeah, of
parking.
course,
Yeah.
as you're well aware, you weren't on the board and I was still 2 years
Right.
off from being in this chair.
Right.
So I don't have a lot of background on this. We have done some research, but those are all excellent questions. But I think that probably the best course is to pursue what we appear to be pursuing and either reapply, modify, whatever it is to get those parking lot plans fully endorsed. There have been some other discussions in the full disclosure. We've been working with the 100 West Street group and with 95 West. On one side of the road, they have staging up and they're working on their building and they want to put their sidewalk in permanently. So we've been out there for some sidewalk closure plans and meetings on that. And on the other side, there's been some proposals and discussions about what to do out in the right-of-way in front of the 100 West Street parking lot with curbing and whatnot. And they've actually shown us a plan to curb up the interface of Riverview Place and West Street, which Riverview Place would be one of the entrance to the 100 West Street parking lot. So we've been also looking at those and in contact with the chairman and said, so there's a lot of moving parts in this process right now. So I think the applicants, when they come down here, will certainly discuss that. We may be further along with those things. But truly, you're approving the work on the private property with those site plans. The work in the public way is truly under the jurisdiction of the selectmen. So that's what we've been doing lately, and we've been doing a lot of that. Emails, phone calls, meetings, things like that, trying to get this coordinated. Because as you know, this whole project is rolling. So they're looking to, later in the year, first of next year somewhere, and they're going to be looking for occupancies for the first units in the 95 West Street complex. So,
Is 100 Elm Street the parking lot across from the existing MBTA parking lot?
correct. And I believe that lot was once used for MBTA
Right,
parking as
yes.
well.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Yes.
So do we know the applicant for 100 Elm Street, they're planning to reapply, or? we
It would
don't know?
appear that way, yes.
They've been cooperative, yes.
Yeah, there's an email that we got today stating basically to that effect. So, yes. I think they're interested in getting this squared away.
Okay.
quickly.
Okay, all right, so, all right. That's fine. No vote needed there, right?
Nope.
Okay.
Thanks, Carl.
We can open,
Yeah, you can
bid.
open the 7:15 bid cars, and just open it to continue it and accept an extension through December 30th or 31st.
Okay.
Being after 7:15.
Okay. The hour being after 7:15, we'll open the hearing for 623 Route 1 bid cars. And I have a member, a letter to the board requesting a continuance without discussion to the November 7th Planning Board hearing. The zoning board hearing remains open and is expected to meet again on November 6th. So on behalf of the applicant, the engineer is requesting the extension on the time.
Actually, you know, excuse me, we can do it to the 20th because of 7th, but we do it to what they wanted. to
Are they-
November 20th.
Yeah, because they're not here to
Right,
request.
Right, yeah.
Okay. So the letter is granting an extension up to and including November 20th, 2019. We will likely need a further extension from that, but we can request, right, Kate?
Mm.
We can request
Mhm.
from them
Yep, 11/7, we can request that.
to ultimately grant that extension through December 31st. So should we vote on? Yeah, we
Mhm.
have, okay, so we'll take a vote to continue without discussion until November 7th
At 7 o'clock.
at
7:05.
7:05.
What else do we have November 7th? Weren't we chock full?
We have, on November 7th, we have Bristol. The 3 hearings are Bristol. And at 7 o'clock is Ron Priori coming in for an update on the trail subdivision, and then this would be 7:05 first, and then into Bristol.
Okay.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Okay. John. Okay, all those in favor of continuing?
Aye.
Say
Aye.
aye. Oppose, abstain?
You.
Jack's here.
Okay.
And I just want to mention one thing, that
Yeah.
I missed the October 17th meeting, but I did watch the video and sign the form today to attest that I watched it.
For the, yeah,
For this hearing,
For the
for
bid
case
cars.
19-10.
okay.
Do we
And
have
just the
to
extension of time, Sarah.
vote on
Okay.
the extension also? Yeah.
Yeah, so then we'll vote to accept the extension up through what they have it granted. That's November 20th. Have a second? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain?
Jackie, you voting on that?
Yeah.
Abstaining?
No, I'll go along with the extension.
Okay. That's an interesting vote. Okay,
Thank you.
and with that, I hand over the reins.
Did you do everything?
We're all done, yep. All you gotta do is close
Move
it.
to adjourn.
So all the stuff on other business done? Okay, good.
From the hearings, we just opened and finished the bid cars, and we went through the other business.
Now we got 6 minutes, right?
Mhm. So, just to bring you back up to speed, Jack.
Okay.
The board voted to nominate Phil to serve on the townhouse committee, reuse committee.
See, what you're supposed to do is vote someone who's not here.
Yeah, well, we thought about you, but,
Thanks, Phil.
Yeah, we should
I've
have.
already been on that committee about 10 years ago. See how good I did, huh?
And 100 Elm Street, Carl kind of brought us up to speed. I don't know if you have anything that you
Oh.
needed to air on that.
Was that the one that they gotta refile?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I saw that. And Kevin, you did the bond with MI?
Yep.
Okay. And we didn't get all the consultant stuff back yet, right, Kevin?
Right.
Okay.
So we just waited. We're gonna wait on until November 3rd. That's it. So, and you can tell us a story about where you were.
Mr. Chairman, if you will, could I do a quick update on Seboides Way?
Oh, yeah, that's Tall Pines, yep.
Tall Pines. A few meetings back, residents came in and stated their concerns about the condition of the road and a high water box in the sidewalk. Those have all been remedied, and the way is in good condition to survive the winter, and we're going to try and move forward with this thing and see if we can get it back on track.
Okay. Were you able to get a hold of Dan?
No, we didn't.
Well, we'll see him next time, won't we?
Well, I'll give him a ring. We've been pretty busy, so.
Yeah, no, but he will be in front of us with bid cars
Yep.
on the 7th. Okay.
Who did the repairs, the town?
Thank you to the Highway Department on one end and Phil McCall from Water on the other. And so the tripping hazard's gone and the road is very travelable. And actually, the subdivision road is in pretty good condition. I think we can move forward with this subdivision. Whether we end up doing it through foreclosure on the security or whether we're able to get the developer to jump back in and finish it, I think that would be the best option, and I think that's what we're gonna work on doing.
Are you gonna work up a new punch list, or a new list for him?
Well, we'll have to, yes, there'll have to be a completion list. It certainly has some items that need to be done, but I think we're well within the amount of money held on the bond.
Or maybe if you did a list like that and just sent it to, if the guy wants to do it, send it to him. Oh, by the way, here's your last shot, and here's what you want done.
Right.
And see what he says from that.
I think that's a good idea.
Okay. Where was I? Well, because at the bottom of my check, it doesn't say Town of Walpole.
Oh,
But I was with the guy whose name is at the bottom of my check, so, you know, we all have to do that now and again.
okay.
Of course, so-
I wasn't really asking. I was just making conversation.
No, I missed the sushi night with the rest of the guys, because I have a meeting.
Somehow I can't
No,
picture
it-
you being a sushi
it-
person.
Believe me, it's not the sushi, Kate.
Sorry.
I told them I can't go, because it would not be nice afterwards. I'm here late.
Okay. I'm gonna have to step out to attend the Finance Committee meeting, Mr. Chairman, so I'll be back, but I'm not quite sure when.
Isn't tonight just not the hearing, it's just
The public hearing.
It's a public hearing, right?
Yeah,
You gonna go to that?
yes,
Starts what, 7:30?
7:30.
Down at the senior center, right?
Yes. In the Murphy Room.
Oh, thank you. I guess I better get
Well,
going.
you'd be right in the front row, where is everybody?
It's a pretty minor item that I'm for, but I'll leave all my stuff, and can you hear that out there?
He's on his way.
Where'd they go? That's all right, Carl. We have that on tape forever. Since we got about a minute, you're gonna be set up, ready to go right at 7:30, boom? Okay.
Anything on the comments we can finish?
We'll give you a vote, but it may not be.
Anything down here, Kate, we can?
We don't usually do anything with those.
What do you need?
Occasionally, there's something.
Yeah, but
nothing.
we can if you want. There's nothing, Prospect Trails, under bonding. you know, looking at we
Share
really
plans
care
if you wanna
about.
look.
Yeah, but did you do any scribbles on it?
No, I didn't write on the plan.
Okay.
I wrote on my notes.
Old Town
You know
Road.
what we
All
should
right, we're right there now. Okay, with the hour being after 7:30, we have a continued public hearing for New Pond Village, case number 1903. With that, we're back in the open. Phil?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Phil Mackey, Mackey and Mackey, 1256 Washington Street, Norwood, Massachusetts, as counsel for and on behalf of the applicant. With me is Bill Cook from Benchmark Senior Living and Jim Bernardino from Bowler Engineering. Where we left it, I think it's several months ago at this point, the do-outs were talk to the fire department, talk to the neighbors. We've had both of those meetings and changed the plans accordingly. And with your permission, rather than me trying to explain what the engineer did, I'd rather have Jim actually give you a first-hand account of what transpired, rather.
Sure.
Jim?
Again, Jim Bernardino, Bowler Engineering. I'd like to start off with our first order of business when we left you last time was to work with the neighborhood group, the Willow Pond Board. I met with John Mastone actually on site, ran through landscaping, and what we've done was the primary concern that the neighbors had was the residential buffer screen behind the building. If we recall, we had some preliminary plans and discussions with the client, with the representative of the Willow Pond Board, and we agreed at that point in concept to extend the green, which was originally proposed, a little further, but then we had some additional conversations, and we ultimately agreed to wrap the entire back of that building with a vegetated buffer similar to what's out there today, which is a very tall evergreen pine screen that'll grow up to a relatively significant height. We discussed that with them, and with a couple other minor changes as well. The final landscape plan, I don't have it colored, but does reflect that, which is also submitted to the board. The evergreen buffer, we had some substitutions of the white pines along the corner of the building here and over here, just so that it doesn't grow into the building itself. Those are the jumbo arborvitaes that'll grow high and tall, and will provide the evergreen buffer as well. I do have an email correspondence with the neighbors that say that what we've coordinated and worked out is acceptable to them. I don't see them here this evening, but we have worked out and been in contact with them. So the plan that we agreed to is reflective in what has been submitted to the commission, or to the board. Also, the next order of business that we attended to was to meet with the deputy fire chief to review the previous comments. We did review with the deputy chief and modified the plans accordingly. One of their major comments and concerns was a width along the back of the building of the emergency driveway. And we did some plan improvements that allowed for the 20-foot width, which ultimately tripped a threshold for us to go back to the Conservation Commission because the work actually encroached into the 25-foot no disturb buffer zone. I'll go into detail a little bit in a few minutes on those plan changes. But long story short, we did refile with the Conservation Commission those modified plans, and they ultimately have issued their amended order of conditions last week, or maybe at the beginning of this week, but it was just recently where they actually physically issued the amended order of conditions. So we have the plans before the board are what ultimately has been reviewed and approved by the commission as well. Subsequently, we also incorporated a number of minor plan revisions to address the numerous staff comments from conservation, engineering, water, and sewer. All of those are reflected in the revised set of plans. We also went and were requested to go to present in front of the Water and Sewer Commission the proposed development as well, because it was a revised set of plans. They just wanted to see for themselves what was being changed. Relatively insignificant from a water and sewer perspective, So the Water and Sewer Commission ultimately voted in favor to support the amended site plan. Excuse me. So, with that said, we did provide a formal response letter to all those comments, and I believe we've addressed them to the satisfaction of all the different staff and departments. We did receive recently, as early as yesterday and again today, a couple of remaining comments that, I'd like to review, because ultimately, it is gonna be the board to make some decisions on those. We did receive today a comment letter from Carl, the town engineer, regarding a couple of outstanding items regarding water service sizes and the like. I do believe the plans incorporate those in the revised set that's in front of the board. However, I'll confirm again, and we take no exception to addressing those comments brought forth by Mr. Baldoff in his memorandum to the board today. Those are relatively insignificant. We take no exception to them. We also received a Board of Health updated comments to the board, just stating their opposition to any work within the 100-foot buffer zone. Just reiterate, the 100-foot buffer zone work within that, obviously part of site plan approval, but it's also under the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission. And once again, the Conservation Commission did vote to approve the amended site plan as was presented and currently being presented to the board. And lastly, which I think would be the most topic of discussion with the board, is the latest fire department memorandum that came out the other day. So let me start off with going through that by point, and then what we could do is just have a continued dialogue on what's been proposed and what we believe the fire department is looking for, and how we believe we're consistent with what its concerns are. I'm not sure if the board has the memorandum in front of them, but I would just like to kind of run through and make sure we hit all the points appropriately. The first one is regarding the proposed access widths. Now, this comment was what triggered the notice of intent to be refiled with the Conservation Commission. I would like to just skip over this one for now, because this is going to be the one that'll take a little bit of dialogue. And I'll just run through the remaining points, and I'll circle back to this. So the next bullet point, number 2, obviously there's no issue here. We acknowledge, we are going to provide residential sprinklers for the building, so we're agreeing to that as just being good neighbors and safety practices, which we think is all beneficial to not only the program that's being proposed, but as well as the town first responders. The next one is the, they requested us to do a major overhaul of an emergency driveway. Obviously, this is a little faint, but here's the existing building, and here is the proposed, the existing nursing home. They were looking for us to do a major rehaul of an existing emergency access way in the back there, which obviously is relatively disconnected from the proposed development. And we understand some of the comments and concerns from the fire department. So we agreed to make sure that we are maintaining a free and unobstructed access. There's some overgrowth vegetation back there, so I believe that with that understanding that we're going to maintain a clear, unobstructed access by making sure we prune and maintain all the existing vegetation that's there. We believe that we're going to meet what the fire department is seeking for their emergency access. So we would take no opposition to having that as a condition of approval, that we maintain vegetation, being cut back to have an unobstructed emergency access in that location to Butledge Street. They asked us if we would like to work providing adequate emergency radio access throughout the facility. Obviously, we will provide a radio coverage throughout the entire proposed building, which is will be under construction, so that'll be easily implemented into some design plans. The fire department did ask that we take a look at the entire building itself, the existing facilities, which is, to put it frankly, it's a very major overhaul to have that done. Obviously, we will do what we can as improvements happen within the existing facility. We'll work, through the building department and building permit aspect, with the fire department to make enhancements to an extent that's practicable for the development. Obviously, we will work with them and provide, what is required for the proposed addition. But as far as the existing facility goes, that's going to be on a case-by-case basis that as construction moves forward or redeveloped in the existing facility. This is not necessarily a site plan issue. It's more of a building department and a building code compliance issue. So we have that understanding. So we're just putting that out there that we will discuss and continue this consideration with the fire department. The next one is the fire alarm system. They're asking us for a similar overhaul of the entire existing fire alarm system. Obviously, everything that's new for the proposed building will be up to the current standards for all fire protection and building code compliance. And we do agree to work with the fire department on a case-by-case basis as building permits and improvements are sought for the existing facility. Just to go in and rip down walls and sheet rock throughout a very large facility to upgrade a fire alarm system is not practical for what's being currently proposed. So the proposed building addition is actually being designed to be almost considered a separate building from a building code compliance aspect, meaning we have firewall ratings, and so all of the compliance for the addition will be up to code, up to standards. And as I mentioned before, the existing facility we'll look at as a case-by-case basis. Again, we believe this is a building permit and building code issue, not necessarily a site plan review issue. The next one is regarding the hydrant location. They're in general agreement on the current proposed location, but obviously we don't take issue with working that out with them to make sure it may get located 20, 30 feet one way or another. We take no issue with working with the fire department regarding that matter. So a condition of approval, if the board thinks that may be appropriate, we'll be amenable to that. They ask us to inquire about the usage of the 8 proposed 3-bedroom independent living units. Will these be independently owned, and is there a potential to be converted to a specialized use in the future? Right now, the use, independent living, it will be part of the overall program. Bill, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but these units will not be owned by the residents, but they'll ultimately buy into the program where they're part of the overall facility. So there's no ownership of the unit. Is there a potential conversion to be specified in the future? Right now, there's no plans for, changing it over to a specialized use. So obviously, any use change that's not compliant with the current zoning regulation or that may be in direct conflict with the special permit that was issued by the Zoning Board of Appeals. So if there's any conflict there, we would need to come back to the town to discuss that matter. So those are the intended usage now and in the future. The next two are regarding the proposed trees that are going to be installed on the subject site around the perimeter on the 8 townhouse-style buildings. We have some large shade trees. Likewise, along the Likewise, building addition size, we have some larger trees. They are intended to be large growing shade trees to be consistent with the surrounding areas. The fire department just makes sure and asks that we don't allow these to obstruct access over the roadways. So obviously, they do have a landscape program, they do have landscape contractors. We take no exception to make a condition of approval that vegetation be manicured and maintained so that not to obstruct any vehicular access, including fire apparatus, along any of the roadways. And we understand that, big branches may grow. We'll make sure that they don't grow and hang over the road that would impede any type of fire department access. Is there any discussions or dialogue that the board would like to dump into before I get into the first comment regarding the access drive in the back? Or if you just want me to roll and finish it up, and then we'll take it from there.
My only comment here is, yes, Deputy Chief Barry points this stuff out. A lot of it is not within our purview, but he's just forewarning, that's all.
Yes, and we do understand that, and we want to do as much as we can to be compliant, site plan related items. So that's why we're doing a lot of things above and beyond, such as adding sprinklers and things of that nature that aren't necessarily required by the code or not, but we think they're good practices. So we're trying to do the best we can. Because obviously Benchmark is going to be here for the long run, and they're making a relatively big investment, so they want to continue their relationship with the town. So going into the very first.
Time out.
I'm sorry.
My turn to ask anybody here.
Oh, that's the problem.
You want the vote? You want the vote, yes or no?
Not yet.
All right, I think, Phil, I saw your hand.
Yeah, I just have a couple questions. So the radio coverage, does that mean you have to provide like repeaters or?
I'm not an architect. What it is there's a, you can speak to that?
Can you come up to the mic so people can hear you at home?
Bill Cook, Benchmark Senior Living. So typically what that would be is what's called, in the case of fire departments, it's called a bidirectional antenna. And it's, as you said, it's essentially a repeater within the building that it's tuned to the same frequency that the fire department's radios are, so that if there's any dead spots or whatever within the building, it's basically a signal booster, like a cell phone booster. However, it's not on a cell phone basis, so it has to be done through wires installed throughout the entire building and it's a whole separate system within an entire building. So hopefully that answers your question.
No, thank you. And my other question was, so is there an access road to Bullard Street in the end? What is? So if you don't mind, could you just show that?
Yeah, the emergency access.
Emergency access?
Yes, so there's an emergency access road. Back in the original permitting process, I'll highlight it.
That road needs to be added to the plans.
Excuse me?
That road needs to be added to the plans,
The
emergency access.
access road, the
Yeah.
existing,
Yeah.
and it may even be there. I'll check.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, the plan we have is dated October 3rd or 2nd?
Yes.
That is the up-to-date plan?
That's the current updated set of site plans. The current nursing home is an access road that comes off the edge of the parking behind. And there's also one that comes back down through here. Out the And that is a grassed, reinforced access road. We have extra gravel on the bottom for structural support. That was installed in the late 80s when the original development came on. There's some signage at the ends, no parking, fire access road, so those are items. The concern with the overgrowth is over here where it comes out of the clearing and it goes through a cleared area that has trees that have eventually grown over and things of that nature. So the proposal is to maintain that clear. And definitely, we could add that to the site plan. It was part of the original site plan approval, so we can definitely show that on the.
Is there a gate at the end of Bullet? At
Yes,
Bullet
there
Street?
is. There's
So I shouldn't
a
park in
pipe
front
gate,
of it.
swing gate.
At the tavern.
Yeah, and just as for the record, I just want to mention that, although I was not able to be present at the original meeting, I did do the, view the videotape on cable TV, Walpole Media, and did sign the Mellon letter, so.
Sarah, you have any questions of fire?
I mean, I have lots of questions, yeah, we're
On-
going
on
through
the-
all,
What he's doing with this?
about the fire.
Yeah, anything
I
on
mean,
this?
he hasn't got to the heart of the issue,
Yeah, I
so
know,
we'll
but
wait
that's
on
one,
that. Yeah.
before we get there, you're all set until he gets there?
Yeah, that's fine.
John, you have anything else on this? Okay, so, get to the,
My only comment
oh, I'm sorry,
is,
missed you.
and it's out of our purview, but in regard to the radio and fire, my 2 cents is, just what you said, you're here for the long haul. So, and it's not just a safety, I mean, it's a huge safety issue, but it's a marketing issue for you guys too. I think it would be a great selling point to say that you have updated everything and you're top-notch with the fire department, so I just would say consider it, that's all.
You all set? Okay, let's hit the first bullet point.
So we're gonna hit the first bullet point. So obviously, the fire chief, deputy chief has asked us to provide a 20-foot unobstructed access drive as it relates to the current state fire code. The state fire code, we have done so, and however, in a couple of areas that are sensitive environmentally to the Conservation Commission, we're proposing grass pavers, which is in addition to the substandard pavement width of, 12 to 16 feet in width, we are adding to the sides of it grass pavers, so there'll be a stable base for the fire apparatus to travel. There will be grass pavers, which would be concrete blocks with open areas to allow vegetation and water to infiltrate through, while still providing a sound, stable pad for the fire apparatus. The deputy chief mentions that he does not agree with that in lieu of a paved area. Now, my understanding of the fire code and the state regulations is it's an unobstructed access drive suitable for vehicular access, which we are providing. Nowhere does it say it needs to be paved. I've seen and I have designed multiple areas that are gravel driveways, stabilized grassed areas such as the pavers we're proposing, or even other structural measures that aren't necessarily pavement. So with that, I would argue that we are compliant with the fire access requirements of the state regulations, and we are proposing what we are currently showing due to the sensitive nature of being within a 25-foot offset to wetlands and BVWs, hence the requirement for us to get an amended order of conditions. I'll take a quick look and I'll show you on the plans where we stand. Now, the revised plans, this is the southern part of the building, this is the building addition. Previously, we had 20-foot drive width through this area here, which we thought was adequate enough. And asked us, seeing that is the entrance, and where primary vehicles would exit out of the parking lot, we increased that to 24 feet wide. So we made some enhancements to the radii and the light for the access drive. As you get past the proposed development to the existing drive aisle in the back, now we're strictly talking about areas that weren't previously proposed for redevelopment or enhancements. Well, what we did was, in this area here, we believe it was important to maintain that 20-foot width. So what we did was we're actually widening this area here, highlighted in orange. We're adding pavement in that area. because it's suitable. It's outside of, we're looking at a 25-foot buffer zone. It's within previously disturbed areas, so we thought that was an appropriate area to actually pave. So as we head up north, I have the next slide, bear with me. All right, addition down here, and up here is the 8 townhouse units in the back. This is the area that we really focused with our conversations with the Conservation Commission. Obviously, through this area here, we had substandard pavement widths under the current fire code regulations. And what we needed to do was widen it to make it a 20-foot continuous width. As you can see, the green line to your far left of the paper is the wetland line. The yellow was the 25-foot no disturb zone. So the town actually has a regulation, can't do any work within the 25-foot zone. And then obviously the further our yellow line is the 100-foot buffer zone. For those who may be familiar with the back of the site, this is a relatively significant retaining wall off the back, which is relatively new construction, has an elevated patio on it, so it's a very substantial structure. So what we were not able to do is add pavement to the building side. So what we needed to do was encroach on the wetland side on areas that were previously undeveloped. Now, in discussions with the Conservation Commission, Landis, the agent, what could we do to minimize those impacts? And those minimization techniques were give a structurally sound travel lane, but let's maintain greenness. Let's maintain infiltration to, recharge to the groundwater. Let's not really impact stormwater. So what we did was we added the green area, which is the limit of those grass pavers. Now, those grass pavers did extend into no-build zones. So we did what we could do. We did, to the great extent that we could, implement retaining walls, steeper slopes. So we do have a small retaining wall here, just to minimize how far we went into those buffer zones. Excuse me. So, with that, I believe one of the concerns when we met with the deputy chief was a comment that if it wasn't paved, it wasn't going to get plowed. I think that was the concern of the chief, deputy chief. How are we going to maintain this? But obviously, we know that we need to plow and maintain an unobstructed 20-foot wide path. So we could definitely incorporate that into a maintenance plowing program, make sure our contractors are aware of it, make it a condition of approval, but this area, be plowed and maintained as a 20-foot unobstructed access. Limit any type of new structures within those areas, require the required width for plowing. And then on the last one, that was really the area of concern, but I was finish up on the remaining part of it. So along the building, the 8 townhouse style buildings, we actually added some pavement width because we didn't have to push our limits of work back. We had extra long parking areas, so we were able to add that width required to get that 20-foot minimum requirement, to meet that 20-foot minimum requirement. All these improvements did result in a increase in impervious area. So in conjunction with that and working with the Conservation Commission, we actually enhanced our drainage system. We've added an additional water quality unit over here, in addition to another one that was previously proposed, and we enhanced the underground infiltration. So we're we're adding additional impervious, but we actually went to that point and beyond for the water quality treatment. So I think the major concern and the hurdle that we would need to discuss is the grass pavers in this area here. again, just reiterate, we believe that, you know, we meet the intent of the general regulations for the state of Massachusetts. Unobstructed access, we do provide that, a stable base, minimum of 20 feet. And just like to reiterate that this is not uncommon practice. I've done it many times over the years, and I'm sure even the board may have seen it in the past, for those who maybe have a little experience on the board. So with that, I would turn it back over to the board for additional dialogue.
Okay, question. You ever dealt with fire chiefs?
Have I dealt with them? Yes.
You ever dealt with them when you're trying to get a permit or after the sign-off?
Yes, we have.
Have you ever recited the codes to them?
I haven't gone through it. Once,
Have you? Just, who wins?
well, no, I understand, and we're not looking to have a power struggle here. We're looking to provide something that we can address a lot of different parties of interest. I know the fire code is interested in a lot of their concerns. We're not opposed to other techniques. Obviously, paving is one that I think the Conservation Commission would have some issues with. There is an option of pervious pavement. You know, it'll be a blacktop, it'll be appearance, but obviously we would need to seek additional approvals from the Conservation Commission on that.
Okay, now, before I get into some of what you just said, what I read here very simply is, I'm reading as Paul wrote it. If the 8 proposed 3-bedroom independent units are approved, we request the emergency access road to those structures be increased to a minimum of 20 feet. So I read this like he's looking at a plan that doesn't show 20. That's where I find some confusion. And his final comment under this bullet point is, we do not support the suggested permanent pavers as an alternate to the paved roadway. Now, it also you said you're gonna use them on the edges. This also sounds like you, if I read this without you explaining it, it sounds like you went in front of him with 12-foot wide road with permeable pavers.
No, we did not. We discussed adding the width of pavement in certain areas where we could. We did mention permeable pavers and in those locations that are sensitive. That wasn't warm and fuzzy, receptive, but after we met with the Conservation Commission, in order to work within the regulated area that is obviously a no-touch zone from the Conservation Commission, we needed to come up with something creative that would allow us to work within basically a no-fly zone. But my understanding is the fire department has received the current set of plans. And the proposal is not to have a 20-foot wide permeable pavers. It's to maintain the existing pavement and supplement the edges by 2, maybe 6 feet in some areas. You know, most areas are relatively
It's a lot.
3-4 feet wide, but here is a little bit wider. I think we were up to, maybe 6 to 7 feet in width for that pavement there.
Okay, now, what I will say is this board, we send it out to all comments, and if we get comments back, we don't ignore them. Okay, meaning, if you don't like it, we don't like it. We're not gonna supersede this is his profession. We're here to gather all the information, and we're not gonna sit there and overrule the fire department, because we ask him. If I'm at his end and I said, nah, you don't know what you're talking about, I'll never give you anything back again. So we ask their input for a specific reason, this is what he comes back with. Now I know you're in I don't wanna say a rock and a hard place. I'll be one of my own. The way I feel is, I could care less about a tree frog. I'd rather have a fire truck be able to get around the back of my house than worrying about a couple of frogs and some pollywogs. But that's what you're gonna have to at least hear, is I don't think this board is going to approve something that the fire chief or the deputy, Paul Barry, is against, so. And we're not gonna give you relief from that, because if we do, then we shouldn't send anything out from there.
Totally understood, Mr. Chairman. Unfortunately, we got this comment this morning. I believe your board got it yesterday. That is what that is. We owed you a presentation. We gave it. Totally understand where you're coming from. I would suggest that we, outside of this issue, answer to the best of your our ability and your satisfaction, any other questions.
Yeah, no, you,
And narrow it down to this, and we will try and have a meeting with the conservation agent and the deputy chief.
Yep.
And let them figure out what they want.
Yep.
Because it's,
Bridget?
ultimately, we've got a fire code, we've got site plan approval, and we've got conservation regulations. And somebody has to bend somewhere. I suspect I know where that's gonna be, but that's not my call.
no, that's what we wanna do, knock it down. So I got other comments before we open it back up again, so you have them. I don't know if you already have them. First, from the police, they find no impact on public safety or quality of life. Board of Health, this is an interesting one, Mr. Mackey, and it said the Board of Health at their meeting unanimously voted to reiterate comments made at their September 17th meeting that they are strongly opposed to new construction with a 100-foot buffer zone and add their concerns regarding the mosquito-borne illness, including EE and West Nile, which are more prevalent in wetland areas. The board does not have a concern regarding the proposed 3-story addition to an existing building and encourage recycling. So what I get out of that is, I was told a long time ago by someone you know very well, is Board of Health rules on everything. So what I see here is the Board of Health said no to anything within 100 feet.
I disagree that they've said no. They,
Well, they voted unanimously to oppose.
Strongly.
So to me, this means we don't like it. Board of Health, this happened on a number of cases.
this does, they say that to virtually everything.
Well, then,
Which it got built.
I understand, so my
Exact same,
My point is, maybe you need to go see the Board of Health and ask them what, you know, you need a yes, no, or a abstention vote. But right now, this, to me, is a no. You know, you say they're reaching beyond,
very much so. And they absolutely could declare a public health nuisance and forbid any development in Walpole inside of the 100-foot buffer zone.
Yeah.
They could do that. Be interesting to see how that turns out for
no,
everybody,
I'm not
but
disagreeing, Phil, but
You can't do it case by case.
Yeah, I learned from the
There's
best
either a
on this,
health
from the Board of
issue or
Health, and that's what he said. So this needs to be cleaned up. However, you know, meet with the Board of Health, and what, is it just their opinion, or is this an actual vote?
Okay.
Okay, because that's at least a showstopper in most. Happened on another project too. Another
They
interesting,
literally put that on everything in the buffer. That's a form letter almost at this point. The West Nile virus is new. I will go talk to
well,
them.
that's, when I saw that, all of a sudden, that gave a reason why not to build near it. Also, if you'd done this in June, West Nile wasn't even known about at that point, right?
It's true.
It just came on in the last month, so.
Tried.
But in Norwood, they don't have it, so here we do. You can't, at night, as soon as you go over Norwood, there's no bugs. From the, to the planning, from the Board of Appeals, this project was proposed, the proposed project was approved earlier? You went from the zoning board?
We did, yes.
Okay.
We got a special permit, for the use. We have a special permit to alter non-conforming parking. Basically, we wrapped up all of the,
So you did the parking through them too?
yes.
Okay, so it wasn't like you, all right, my understanding, I thought is you just said, hey, we haven't changed it, so we're gonna go with what we had, but you've already cleared that through the,
Correct.
Okay.
There's one area that we did have to change, and to your earlier point, we have to file for relief, and we did.
okay? We have one from,
Jeremy, can I ask just one question?
Yeah.
So the parking you went through, just the actual number of spots or exactly the parking layout and,
Mainly the layout.
okay,
Basically, the zoning bylaw calls for 18.5-foot stalls and 26-foot
yeah.
aisles.
Mhm.
We had stalls that ranged from 12 to 18 feet and aisles that ranged from 13 to 26 feet. So what we did versus pushing things further into the wetlands, we give all 26-foot aisles and 18-foot stalls. And so we needed relief for that half of a foot, which we have received.
Throughout the site.
No, just for that one area.
No, okay.
The parking that remains unchanged is where it is,
Mhm.
and anything that's new conforms.
Okay.
Okay. Conservation voted, as you said, and we have the, what do you call it? DEP filing here. Let's keep going down. You wanna, from Carl Baldoff, who is, we hope, went to the senior center. Hope someone told him it moved. He's probably down at the new. We received, it's all right, Carl likes me. The following October 17th, a memorandum from the town departments, 29-sheet plan, and a 7-page letter. Comments from the town, former town engineers, March 11th, have been addressed in the responses. Furthermore, minor comments provided to the conservation appear to have been addressed, with the exception of the following minor items, which should be addressed. Independent units currently that are proposed with the 3-inch type K copper should be 1 inch.
3/4 inch, yes, we agree with that, and I believe the plans do reflect that, but I'll confirm.
You have to come put it in the plans anyway, because you gotta add the thing.
Right, exactly.
Okay. Fire service are not sized for independent buildings. They will need to be worked out prior to utility installation. If they are 2-inch, they will need to be type K. If they're 4, they'll need to be 4-inch ductile. And all fire services shall be tested for 200 PSIs for 2 hours. And that's it. So, and I think the last one, the fire service, comes down when you go to test, correct? You gotta do your. Now, that's for the sprinklers, correct? Okay. And that's all the comments as far as from the other boards and commissions and committees and departments. So with that being said, start with Sarah.
Okay. First, I'll just reiterate what the chairman said, that if the deputy fire chief is not happy, then we're not happy. Whenever it's regarding public safety and access, these are extremely important issues, and it's something that, must be worked out. One question, so you mentioned that section where you put pavers, you called them grass pavers? Can you explain what those are?
Grass pavers are basically, the detail that we're providing is a concrete block, looks like a honeycomb shape with a hole cut out. So when you physically lay it on the ground, it's structurally sound, but it allows you an opportunity to plant soil between it to allow grass to grow. So it's structurally sound where you could drive on it, however, has vegetated components and allows for water to infiltrate through it. So it's not like impervious where the water just runs off uncontrolled.
Okay, and how will you delineate that that's a grass paver to allow for plowing or whatever you need to?
It'll, visually, it will be different than a normal grass, but we can definitely establish that for plowing by setting stakes, prior to the snowfall events, even permanent markers along the edge. So there's techniques out there that would be, that could be implemented that would not be obtrusive and ugly, but still would give the understanding of the delineated area for the maintenance crews.
Okay. As you said, that's something, this area here, you're gonna have to work out with fire. But I would just say, maybe you need to lose that extension so that you can put pavers more on the building side. Maybe that's the best solution. It's unfortunate, you say it's new, but,
It's your patio, that's.
that is a possibility.
That really isn't. It's literally an 8-foot-high, solid concrete retaining wall that is integral to supporting the back patio for the entire property. So,
Okay, well, you work it out, and like we said, when fire is happy, then we can proceed with the rest. I mentioned that I would like to see that emergency access drive on the plans. And then also probably we need to add a note that that access drive will be kept clear. Can you for me just review the access around the site? Just the complete circulation?
It's far enough away.
This one's a little bit better than the area. So, proposed addition, the existing
It's
building.
right here.
So we have an access point
That says,
off of Main Street, which comes into the property. We have the main access drive that comes all
It's
the way
not
up,
part of the
straight up
building.
through,
Yeah.
and we have parking off the side. Maybe flip this way.
So,
And access
quick,
here.
quick question, are all of these roads two-way traffic?
Yes, they are.
Yes, okay.
Now, straight up the middle is the main access road, and then there's also a loop that comes off that allows, two-way traffic, around the front of the, nursing home as well. And then you have a couple parking lot spurs that have drive aisles that have two-way access as well. As I mentioned previously, the nursing home has the fire access coming off the back here. And it's also, we showed on the design plans coming off here, and then ultimately out to Baldwin Street. And this is an emergency gated access only, so only the fire department has it. I'm sure there's a key there, or it would be a crash gate. Fire departments may not go looking for a key, they'll just snap the chain that's there.
Mhm.
Then ultimately, we do have the entire loop road behind the building, which is the topic of conversation, where it's really dedicated for the service equipment, deliveries, and the like. So very low traffic. Residents generally do not use that for vehicular access. And that is obviously the area that's in discussion for the,
But now you have new residents, which have these homes back here, so they will definitely be using that road.
correct. And it's anticipated that they'll most likely drive through the center of the site down back to the end, rather than through the back of the site where the loading and deliveries occur.
Okay, so all of these roads or access paths that you've described, these are all at least 20 feet wide?
Yes, they are, except for those areas that we're speaking of.
Okay,
And,
can you add that to the plans?
I'd like to point out the driveways that are not roads.
Okay, driveways.
Two difference.
And I believe there's actually current signage in the back of the loading zone over here
Mhm.
that says, do not enter, loading only, or something like that. So the intent is to deter, residents and other individuals from driving around the building.
So you plan to keep that signage?
Yes, that sign is, I believe, being kept. If not, we could definitely add that to say delivery vehicles only, no access.
Okay. Now, there's, it's marked here, 15 parking spaces. It's just to the west of, looks like some green space, right in the center of the site. Yeah, right there.
Right here?
Yes,
These are parallel spaces
correct,
that run up and down.
yeah. So you're telling me that the driveway is 20 feet clear, not including those parking spaces?
Yes, I believe that is true. We don't, I'll confirm.
Okay. If it's not, you're willing to lose those parking spaces?
No,
Or deal with the deputy fire chief that,
the deputy chief has seen those spaces, we don't talk about them at all.
but it's not on the plan, so the width is not on the plans.
Looking at it, asking
Well,
questions.
yeah, I am, but I think if he were to see 13.5 on the plan there, he may ask some questions.
That is an existing driveway, we don't propose no changes,
Okay,
and quite frankly, those are where.
Can you just give me an answer?
Yes.
okay. Okay. I will say that I do have some concerns about safe travel throughout the site. I drove through this afternoon, and it's difficult to travel through, and I would encourage all the board members to maybe take a little trip through the site. That particular area that I'm asking about, I was in that area, and there were two cars going, each way, and one car had to veer off and kind of hang out in the parking spaces to allow the other car to pass. So I didn't get out and measure it, but I'm concerned about that width.
Yeah, yeah, oh, you know, where's-
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure.
Here,
Main entrance?
no, it's the main entrance. Oh, it's, let me report it on this one. The main entrance up there. So you're talking, obviously, up through here,
Yes.
going off to the side?
Yeah. In addition, especially if you're saying the main path that you imagine these residents of the cottages to go in up that way, there's that weird turn where you've got like landscaped, like on the east side, but right in the center, to the right, to my right, yeah, right, that turn where you can go around the back or curve in. I didn't see any stop signs, pavement markings, anything to direct traffic. If somebody were coming from the cottages down and they wanted to take a right into that back parking lot, that's an awkward, yeah.
Well,
Because you have to go down and,
Currently, we don't have the cottages back there, so
right.
that is.
So now we're
as
talking
was
about adding
previously
it, so,
We could add that, that would be fine. As it currently is, though, as we had previously mentioned, we have basically instructed our residents that it's supposed to be service vehicles only. So we really don't want people to go back that way. So if you found it difficult, that's probably a good thing for the time being. But if people were living there, we would sign appropriate.
right. So, I mean, what we're looking at here is to make sure that, circulation and, public safety can be, done to the best of your ability. And now that you're going to use that area, I'm just asking you to look at that area to see if maybe more pavement markings, stop sign, other directional
That would make perfect sense.
guidance for residents and visitors. Okay, so regarding the new parking lot area, has it been designed so that you have 10% landscape within that?
Interior landscaping?
Yeah,
Do not believe we ran calculations for the interior. And just looking at the plan, our interior landscaping here just consists of those two landscape islands. So, looking at it, I do not believe that there's 10% interior landscaping there.
okay, that's a requirement, so.
Well, I would argue it's not. I would say
Okay.
we already have relief for that one.
You have
Um,
relief?
I believe we do. We have a special permit to alter non-conforming parking as per plans, and these are those plans. So I believe we actually do have relief for whatever, not for whatever, for what's shown on the plan.
Okay. We'll maybe confirm that.
Do the numbers anyways,
And I believe I asked last time if you have any solid waste containers and to show them on the plan and show that they're screened properly.
And they are located at the rear of the property, so we'll take a look, what the current screening is there. And they currently are screened, so we'll provide documentation and show you what's out there.
Okay. I did see a solid waste container unscreened, not in the area that you're proposing to make changes, but I believe it was near that 61 parking spaces near the nursing home, and that was unscreened and not shown on the plans that we have here.
Yeah, if it's the nursing homes, it's beyond our
Yeah.
control.
Okay. Yeah, somewhere in that area.
Yeah, that's, as Phil's mentioning, that's beyond our control, which is under, you know, if you wanna call it separate ownership, that regulates that portion of the property, which is the nursing home.
Okay.
That leads me to a question.
Yeah.
Did they sign the application too?
No, they did not. I did. I figured this question
That's
was
good.
coming.
What?
What happened is, this is a condominium, it has two owners. The age qualified, if you will, which is actually NPV Owners LLC.
Yep.
And I forget, I think it's just their address, 160 Main Street, Walpole LLC is the owner of the nursing home. Both of them have authorized me in writing to sign for them. They are
All right, well.
100% owners. So,
Oh.
they did not
Phil,
sign.
you knew what I was asking. I wasn't asking whether it was you or name, but they're applicants too. They have to be, it's all one site.
They have signed, yes.
Okay, so they're part of the whole process then.
So is that fair game?
A little bit.
Okay.
We can try, but I can't promise anything. It's not
Same.
ours legally to touch.
But this.
I understand.
I
You
know
could
I'm gonna get
deny this
because no
on-
lawyers ever agree with me, that's for sure. We'll get that one straight. But this is one whole big, it's not divided up, so
It is not. It's
we
one
have to
lot.
look at it as one. So
Mhm.
that's kinda how we're doing. Okay.
I understand, and I'm telling you, legally, we don't have any rights to touch that.
You guys,
We do not, no.
but the co-applicant,
Yes.
we're talking co.
I don't represent them. I had authority to sign an application. And then it would become, is it reasonable to deny the entire project because they wouldn't fence their dumpster? And maybe it is.
Well, I think Sarah's asked a legitimate question and we found out, so have at it. Talk to the other owners, see what they wanna do.
And then I have a question for the board, maybe the chairman. So it says in our bylaws that we have to screen solid waste containers. But in the back, near these new cottages, there's a pretty massive, an evaporation machine? Yeah,
I'm sorry, so that is the chiller for our air conditioning system?
okay.
And that's it's a large,
So
it's a
it's
piece of
like-
HVAC equipment.
Do you have the height on it?
I don't off the top of my head, but if I had to estimate it, I would say between 12 and 15 feet.
Yeah, so,
And I believe that is an 8-foot fence. It's enclosed within an 8-foot fence.
right, yeah, so.
Well, the reason for the dumpster screening is, aside from people don't like looking at, which doesn't
Yeah.
bother me, is you wanna keep the animals out. That's the biggest thing.
Oh, okay,
And why they put, I don't know if the building codes make you, but it's always a good idea. You wanna screen in something like a mechanical unit, cause you don't want kids coming up or throwing crap in it.
so they have a small fence and then it's, you
Yeah,
know,
it's
12 feet above.
that fence is more
That's
for
okay?
security, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, that's it, to keep people out of there or even so that someone doesn't wander in it. But the other one, dumpsters, is make them look better, cause you know how crappy some of them can look.
yeah, it's kind of too bad for the people that own those cottages there, that they have to look at that giant evaporator machine, but I guess that's for you guys to worry about. You updated us on the residents. I just wanted to mention on sheet 9, the site plan C. Looks like it's missing blank space, something wasn't printed, or a layer turned off, or I don't know what happened. And those are my questions and comments, thank you.
Phil?
I just had a couple, so if you did pervious paving, that doesn't equally do as well as far as meeting the conservation environmental issues?
That's what we're proposing is pervious paving,
Well, although it's really blocks, right, it's not.
Right, I could add it. The,
different pervious paving.
it's different, so actually, the pervious pavement that you mentioned, it'll look like blacktop, yes. It'll function similarly to the drainage characteristics of allowing water to infiltrate through. However, it does not give the appearance, it's the appearance of a vegetated area. So it just looks more intrusive, looks more vast and expansive of, I don't wanna say a sea of pavement, it's only 20 feet wide, but that's somewhat of the reasoning, within that, existing vegetated buffer. Let's maintain the vegetated look in the appearance and functionality.
And vegetation.
And vegetation.
So that's a question for the Conservation Commission.
Correct.
Sounds like that might be one direction to
Yeah,
go in.
I think the simplest solution would be have the conversation with, the Conservation Commission, if that would be acceptable to them, due to the feedback that we've received from your board this evening.
And then in regard to being in the 100-foot buffer, it looks like 4 units are in that buffer and 4 units are not. Is that,
I believe so.
that's what I'm seeing, so.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna bring that up in the context of, the impact on the whole question of the health. Yeah, and there's no way to move those, I'm sure you're so far down the
No,
line. on
we
that.
looked at a variety of different options, and all the options that we had were actually more impactful, to what we're currently showing, so.
So again, that'll be a decision that, as you negotiate with the health department, what comes out of that. And then one other quick question was, I know in the last hearing, some neighbors mentioned fences. Like there's access to the water. I don't know whether there was any follow-up on that or that outstanding issue.
We have not shown that. When you look at the proposed building, they were worried about fences gaining access from this lot to the back.
And I think they were worried about getting into Willard Pond, I think.
Yeah, right, get into the pond. When I say that the proposed vegetation that we're showing, and that's on the current plan, acts better than any fence. There are large evergreen that'll be proposed to be a vegetated screen that'll grow into each other, be 30 feet high. Putting a split rail fence on it, you can step right over and just walk around it. So I don't see the need in that location. So I think the proposal with a solid vegetated fence addresses the concern of access behind those condominium units. or
And I just want to
townhomes.
reiterate, the seriousness that I think that all of us take with what the deputy fire chief has raised as issues and trying to address the things that meet his needs. And I also want to, also reiterate what Kate said about, the more you can make the building up to the most safety it can be in regard to fire alarm, fire equipment, that's a good thing to do. So
All set? Kate?
Almost everything I had was covered. It was fire, Board of Health, and parking. I do have a question, though. When I was reading the comments, just a clarification, I thought you were referring to an old zoning board relief on parking. Are you referring to an old one? You had a new hearing.
I'm talking about the one we just got.
Okay.
I want to say 2-3 months ago at this
Okay.
point.
I wasn't aware of that, and when I read the comments, that's why I had so many parking questions, was I
Right.
thought it was referring to an old one, so.
We, at the zoning board, we got a special permit for the use. We had let me rephrase it, we modified the existing special permit for the use, because the bylaw has evolved in 30 years. So the terms they had were absolutely fine in 1989. Didn't quite fit.
Yeah.
To be blunt. We also got a special permit to alter a non-conforming parking area, and that's what we were talking about with Sarah. That was part of that hearing. And I suspect that we got a third one, because it was a fairly convoluted decision. They did a great job, I'm not arguing. It just, yeah, I actually said that on TV.
You also said it's convoluted, so you kind of like,
Convoluted. It's not an
Is that part of the
easy,
fence
it's
that
not
you're
an
not putting in,
easy
Phil?
project to recreate something 30 years later, when most of it's already concrete and steel on the ground.
My only other question is in regard to that 25-foot buffer and how they didn't want you to have the pavement in it. Are they going to take issue with you plowing it?
No, obviously, that's a concern that is a safety concern that we're gonna be maintaining it. I think it was more of the routine or the normalness throughout the year of it being paved and as well as the encroachment into those buffer areas.
So they won't have a problem with the heavy equipment going through there?
No, and obviously the heavy equipment going through there is going to be, it's gonna happen anyway. Meaning for whether it's the substandard width or that little bit extra wide, wide.
That's all I have. Thank you.
John?
Well, on that subject, where is the snow put as you plow that?
We do have an overall site plan that shows. That was a map.
Sheet 6.
It's an overall site plan which has numerous shaded areas throughout the site. So as you look at the site, we do show snow storage areas throughout the site. So in the back over here, it will be plowed to one side of the roadway. You know, in speaking with the Conservation
Okay, I see
Commission,
it.
they asked us to plow it to the non-wetland side, so that when it does melt, it'll go into the stormwater system. So we're doing what we can to
Got it covered, yeah.
address those comments.
They'll be closely monitored, I'm sure, right?
Yes, it will.
Fortunately, it's not on 1A.
They'll just salt it.
So you've adjusted the rear barrier, adding additional trees for blocking for the back. Have you had any contact with the people who bought on Bullard Street as to, have they raised any points? Where you've cleared a lot of what used to be a solid tree buffer?
Yeah, to the best of my knowledge, they're not here this evening, but they were at the last meeting, and they reviewed the plan and didn't have any additional comments. Matter of
Okay,
fact,
yeah.
someone came up after me, one of the neighbors, and actually said, "Oh, I didn't realize you're farther away than I thought, and it's really not gonna impact me at all." But
Okay.
they haven't gotten anything further, but they were here, and I know for a fact they were here and were at the hearing.
Did anyone at your later meetings mention anything about the fence that they had mentioned at the first meeting? Yeah, I know you've got the trees there, and they
Yep.
probably will act.
No,
as-
that did not come up
Okay.
again.
Could you explain more about the pavers? Now, I'm assuming there's still gonna be like a gravel layer below that and everything, as if it was a regular roadway?
Yes, there'll be a thinner gravel layer, and then there'll be a compacted gravel layer. And then there'll also be a sand layer, so you could actually set these stones flat. Then afterwards, they'll come in with another material that'll be indicative of allowing vegetation to grow out of it. It's, aesthetically, you will see some of the concrete. It doesn't cover over completely. And it does provide a surface to allow for plowing. You know, obviously, there's still gonna be some disruption of the vegetation from the plowing activities, but it will allow for it to, revegetate during the next growing season.
Okay, so you'd be using, looks like roughly almost 8 to 10 feet of pavers at the widest point where you have the retaining wall.
That's correct.
The retaining wall is what, like concrete blocks or
It'll
something?
be a
like
block wall. It's only about 2 feet high.
that? Only
So
about 2
that
feet
saves,
high?
it's only about 2 feet high, and it saves us about 6 feet of grading in
What's,
towards the buffer zone.
what's the change in height at that point between the roadway and the land below it?
It's minimal. From the edge of the roadway to the top of wall is probably only maybe less than a foot drop, 6 or 8 inches. Because the wall's not that far off the edge of the roadway.
Yeah,
And what we're doing is we're protecting the top of that the vertical drop with a split rail fence at the top. So if anybody does go walking in the back,
Okay.
doing their laps. and
I was
exercises.
thinking one item that the fire department might be thinking about is, depending on the, I'm not sure what the right word is, the stiffness or density of the pavers compared to the roadway. If they got a heavy engine that goes over into that and it suddenly starts tipping on them, is that an issue that has to be looked at? Or is it still as solid basically as a regular roadway?
It'd still be solid. It's a very shallow wall. And basically, the separation, when you look at a zone of influence where the impact is, it's not a high wall where the zone of influence, from where, basically, when you have a load, you're coming out at like a 1-to-1 ratio from the zone of influence. And when you look at where the truck would be driving, would be underground by the time you get to the retaining wall. And it's relatively insignificant retaining wall. So I don't see any issue with, implementing that.
I don't think I have anything else at this time.
Okay. We did your comments while you're gone. You know where the new senior center is?
I was there by 7:30, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome, Carl, for getting you
Do you
there.
have a police escort to get there?
Experience at Walpole Roads.
I don't have any, I get comments, the homework list, but other than that, anybody in the audience have any questions, comments relative to this? The next applicants want to throw some stuff at them? No? Then the war starts. Okay, what I see here is, you got homework.
We do.
Board of Health, Fire, and Concom. And then a lot of comments like Sarah's the dumpster for the,
Put them all in the plan.
and everything else she said. That's what I see, so get a bit of, not a lot of drawing, but a bit of discussions. Okay, with that being said, we need extension probably, right?
What month are we looking at the hearing? I'm asking, because I know you're going down to one a month, so.
Oh, no, we're,
Have that discussion.
we're active. We're active. We got one, what, the December 23rd, 24th?
Do we?
Humbug, I'll be there.
Well, the other ones listed here are
What?
11/7,
It's-
12/5, and 1/16.
Don't we get one on the 21st?
That's a question for us.
That, the board was going to discuss that when you came back.
Oh, you already discussed it? Oh,
No, we didn't.
didn't.
We
oh,
didn't.
super secret
You're
stuff.
going to.
All right.
We
We
couldn't
could put you on the
decide
5th of
that.
December because we don't get anything else on the 21st. And the question would be, I assume you could get it easily done by that.
I
Well,
hope so. You realize which cats I'm trying to hurt to get to a meeting, but hopefully that would work.
okay,
But this, the extension up to and including December 31st?
okay. I'll make a motion to allow the applicant, to accept the applicant's request extension up through December 31st, 2019.
Second.
We have a second? Any further discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, and we will see you on December 5th. That coincides with our Christmas party.
Well, you'll be in good mood.
It's the day after my birthday, if you want to bring me.
Oh, so you bring stuff for
She likes
Christmas and a
cake.
birthday cake?
She likes cake.
Yes, I like cake too.
Because
Those two.
Give me a time.
you guys bring the plates, the next applicant's gonna bring the spoons and stuff,
Is that the first one?
all right?
7:15, Jack? What time you want?
Yeah, 7:15. So we'll
Thank you.
kick it into gear for you. All right, we will see you December 5th,
Thank you very much.
okay? Good luck. Okay, and gotta do a 2-minute break, gonna do a Joe break. And if the Rolls Royce, if you guys wanna start setting up, we'll be back in 2 seconds. I'll give that to Kate. All right. We're back. Okay, got a little break. We have a public hearing, October 17th at 7:35, site plan application 19-11, filed by Rolls-Royce, and at 7:36 for special permit application 19-12, filed by Rolls-Royce with respect to property 110 Norfolk Street. It says it's map 40, 117, and 32-71. Zoning district limited manufacturing in Walpole Resource Area, District 3. The owner of record is Rolls-Royce Marine of North America, formerly known as Bird Johnson, and represented by Mackey and Mackey. And the applicant is seeking a site plan review under section 13 to allow a demolition of an existing paved laydown area and construction of a 30,651 square foot addition and a 2,150 square foot shed for equipment and dumpster storage, the construction of 20-foot wide fire lane along the perimeter, and build a new 21,750 square foot paved laydown area. That will be known as Walpole Expansion Building D. And the applicant is also requesting a special permit under section 12(3)(c)(4), the zoning bylaws, to allow a non-residential use that will render impervious more than 15% or 2,500 square feet per lot, but not more than impervious coverage permitted in the underlying district LM, which is 70%, and for the Walpole expansion. And with that being said, it is open, and just for anybody out there, we combine, typically we run them together to do a special permit and a site plan, because they're the same thing. And so it's kind of a bounce back and forth, but it makes more sense to do it. And because what you're doing is the reason you have to have the special permit in that zoning. With that being said, turn it over to you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Again, Phil Mackey, 1256 Washington Street, Northern Massachusetts. As counsel for and on behalf of the applicant, with me tonight are Eric Corliss and Neil from Narragansett Engineering and Dan Rediger from Rolls-Royce. Per usual, study aids for you. There you go.
Thank you.
Right side up. Thank you.
Thank you.
And while the memorandum does address all the criteria for both the site plan and the special permit, item by item, I would propose that I'm gonna basically talk the entire project as it is. And when we get to the criteria for the special permit, a lot of them will be unaddressed. I'm not gonna reiterate myself a second time unless you have specific questions, which case I'm happy to. So with that, as mentioned in the advertisement, this site is totally within the limited manufacturing, and it's also totally within the Water Resource Protection Overlay District Area 3. The Bird Johnson, which was the predecessor to Rolls-Royce on site, predated any of the watershed bylaws. It was put there basically just as a manufacturing use, and that manufacturing use is continued and as such is grandfathered. That said, this particular expansion has nothing to do with manufacturing. And Dan can talk more detail, because I'm sure you'll have some questions about what I just said, but in brief, they get propellers and turbines from ships, and they have to refurbish them. To do that, they have to take them apart. And very specifically, one of the items that they have to tear down has gotten a lot bigger, to the point where what used to be 20 feet long is now in excess of 50. So they need space, and currently they can do everything they need to, but it's not particularly efficient. It's not, in many cases, covered. Their tear-down yard had, as most recently as when right before we filed, pallets of propellers, et cetera, and whatnot. So a lot of this is to put what was outside under storage. There's a shed attached to the building, which is basically the new home for their 2 forklifts, which they need to move their materials around. And what's actually going on inside of the building itself is tearing down. It's not a manufacturing process. They're not bringing materials in to build anything. They're literally stripping apart propellers. And I'm told at some point they're going to move a measuring machine into this building. And much like anything, scale is what matters, which is why the building is so big. When I say a measuring machine, I've at least seen the room it was in, and it probably is from where Jack is to the corner, almost out parallel with me. So these are not small components. But again, it's not a manufacturing use that we're talking about in this building. This is purely tear down. So as you can see from the site plan, we are proposing basically a large building with a shed to the side, realigning parking, maintaining a outside tear down area, but again, wrapping around the proposed building, a new fire lane, and some fencing, along with stormwater system, which Eric will discuss more in detail. So it's kind of the background of the whole thing. So moving through the criteria, and again, if I hit it once, because there is some redundancy, this for the sake of time and expediency, I'm not going to reiterate or go by verbatim as far as what was going on here. So basically, the first one is consistent with the character of the surrounding area. Talk about height, mass, setback, traditional building materials. Effectively, this addition is behind all of the buildings that are currently there. I'm not sure which plan to put on. You can see you have, this is Norfolk Street, there's Merchants Drive. As you're driving west on Norfolk Street, you can see the Rolls-Royce building, you can see the manufacturing building in the back, there are a couple more you can't see which are screened because of that. Then over to the far side, they have a current building here. And this square, this is existing conditions, is all paved. Effectively, what they're doing is extending this building and then wrapping the pavement around it. The building is designed pretty much to match what's there. It is a steel building and a concrete slab. The existing building is a steel building and a concrete slab. They're most relevant to butters, and we have residents down here. I'm not saying they're not relevant, but they're the furthest away. I guess a better way to rephrase it is the closest to butters are the folks on Merchants Drive, which are basically steel buildings on slabs. So we would submit that we are staying within the character, and of equal importance, you're not really going to see this from the road at all. So for all intents and purposes, for most of Walpole, nothing will have actually been constructed unless you're on Merchants Drive looking through the lots to the back. So we would say that this is within harmony of the neighborhood. As far as consistency with design guidelines, we actually have to run through all of those. We'll get to that in a moment. There is no, as far as we know, master plan or open space recreation plan that addresses this. Therefore, we don't believe that's particularly applicable at this point. As far as protection of site features, natural and man-made, there are no man-made features on this site that are of any significance. There is, however, stream and watershed. We have filed for and actually received an initial order of conditions and amended order of conditions, I believe, which the Conservation Commission signed last week. We don't have them in our hands yet because they decided to mail them, apparently. You do have them now? Okay, fair enough. So we have the order conditions, and again, Eric can discuss in detail the stormwater system should you be interested. But we would submit, at least at this point, that, or not at least at this point, we would submit, period, that we are protecting adequately the watershed. We're staying as far away as we can. Given the constraints in the sites, we are within the 100 feet. We're not within the 25 foot. And we believe that we've adequately addressed that. As far as protection of adjoining premises against drainage, sound, light barriers, preservation of air, noise, etc., we would submit that there is no or will be no impact with regard to light and air. As far as the noise from the building, once it is constructed, there will be construction noise. We don't believe there will be any ongoing noise. Again, it's not a manufacturing piece. It's not particularly loud unless you're in the building, and the building will be designed accordingly to keep the noise within. So, in that particular case, we believe we comply with this. I would mention again, because we do have residential neighbors. We've got Swan Pond, I believe, back out in here. We've got this road here. We've got Jones is there. So we are very cognizant of the fact that we have residential neighbors. This is as far away from them as we can be on the site. And nothing is being proposed along these property lines. I can't tell you the distance, but I would say it's several hundred feet from what we're actually doing. So in that regard, we have taken them into account to the extent possible, given the actual size of the site. As far as convenience and safety of vehicular and pedestrian movement, the drive around the building has been redesigned, and again, I'll let Eric actually discuss that with you, but the pedestrian walk from one side of the to the other is being maintained. In fact, we have so basically, if you remember, this building is the existing, this building is the proposed addition. Traffic comes in this way, it is two-way traffic, but this is basically designed so that a trailer truck can provide all of its turning movements in here and deliver to a door here. And likewise, there will be a door here. I believe that's the way it goes. And so they come out. Eric can go over the turning movements with you, but basically, currently, all of the deliveries of these very large sellers are handled on site. There's no impact out onto Norfolk Street. There will not be afterwards. Parking has been readjusted in this area and in this area, again, to accommodate the flow, and actually put some more spots over by this building, where currently most of the parking is over on this side of the building, with people walking over. There's a walking path, basically, that exists today from here, small bridge, and ends up over in the parking area. That will be maintained. And then, again, I talked about the small shed, relatively speaking, for the two forklifts. Sheds there. That's actually for dumpsters, which are currently outside now and will be enclosed and roofed as a turn. As far as traffic goes, we do not anticipate this expansion to have any noticeable impact. Again, the genesis behind this is the size of the components is becoming bigger, not necessarily I guess every business would like more business, but that's not what this is for. We are anticipating maybe adding 10 workers over the next 5 years. So you're not looking at an increase of 50 or 100 people. You're looking at basically 2 people a year, which I would submit is de minimis. And that was actually one of the reasons we asked for a waiver of the full traffic study based on the developmental review committee that was conducted last spring. As far as adequacy and loading of parking spaces, I kind of briefly went over there. Again, the site was designed so that the delivery trucks, again, trailer trucks, can conduct all of their turning movements on site and deliver and pick up as efficiently as possible. I would also mention this operation is slightly unique. They have leased space over on Renmar Ave, Bayview Rolls-Royce. So currently, some of the tear down and some of the measurements and things are taking place over on there, and effectively you're adding truck deliveries between the two sites because they had to go to Renmar and back and forth. If the board sees fit to approve this, Renmar Ave will naturally end when the lease ends. I'm not exactly sure when that is, but the idea is to shut that down and literally keep everything on site here. So while not a site feature per se. This will actually reduce the Rolls-Royce traffic on Norfolk Street and Renmar Ave, because you won't have people going between the two sites. Everything will be self-contained. As far as general site development guidelines, talks about conserving and protecting natural features. Again, we would submit, the main natural feature is the water that goes through the site, the watershed there. And of course, we're in Area 3, which we'll be discussing again as it's a full-blown special permit. But that is, the water basically in this site is the natural feature that we're looking to protect. And I believe we have developed a system that will adequately do that. Again, we have received both an order of conditions and a land disturbance permit from the Conservation Commission. So they have reviewed that as well. And I don't think he's here, but for a rather unusual request we had from, as part of the conservation process, Bill Buckley of Bay Colony Engineering was retained by Swan Pond to review our basically drainage. He did, and in that process had no issues with us. As far as protecting the slopes against above 15%, again, we have a SWIP, we have a land disturbance permit, we have all the grading guidelines and controls attendant thereto, and we believe that that will ensure that erosion and runoff of the site are properly managed and that there is no unnecessary disruption of the land surface. As far as building structures, placed so as not to interfere with traffic circulation, I've shown you kind of the overall site. Again, this is at the far, I guess you would say, western boundary of the site. And it really isn't going to impact the manufacturing area at all as far as circulation, traffic, pedestrian, or otherwise. And we have designed this area, again, to basically be self-accommodating as far as deliveries, traffic, et cetera, and provided parking for some of the employees who actually work in these buildings to use. I would also note that given the nature of their work with the government, this is a fairly controlled site, so all visitors are parking in the front and do have to check in and basically be badged into the premises. So when I show you when I did show you the parking of this building, that is not for customers, if you will. That is for employees only, because you get stopped well over here if you enter onto the site. As far as roadway and driveway design, taking into consideration site distances and density of units, et cetera, there are no changes whatsoever being made to the curb cuts onto Norfolk Street. There are 2 existing and there are 2 remaining. There's no changes proposed for either one of them. We were asked to check the site distances. We well exceed them. Eric can give you the exact numbers. That was the one thing that came out of developmental review process as far as traffic went. So we would suggest that this site has been functioning with these 2 traffic access points or driveways for over 30 years without any incidents. As far as adequate illumination and limitations of light poles, especially within the residential district, at this point, we are planning on, I believe, all of the illumination these days is now in the building.
No,
Or are we taking a couple poles?
it's currently shown on the plan.
Fair enough. So, all of our illumination is either on this building or in this area. Again, you have hundreds of feet from the residential neighborhoods, and this is forested, this kind of area down here, and that is remaining untouched. As far as the street goes, again, I don't think you're going to see a whole lot because of the setback, very considerable distance, and then the buildings themselves act as a screen. The manufacturing and commercial uses on Renmar may actually notice it a little bit, but that would be about it. As far as utilities being underground, we would submit as shown on the plans, everything is underground. As far as surface water runoff structures being managed in accordance with the drainage standards, we would again submit that our stormwater management plan submitted with the application shows that everything is being treated and controlled in accordance with the stormwater standards. A lot of what I just said applies exactly for the impervious coverage permit, but I would like to just run through both the requirements for filing and the criteria. As far as requiring a full site plan submission, this will be done in accordance with a site plan, so we would submit that we meet that one. Talking about the triggers associated with the use, there are actually none associated with the use. This is an impervious coverage special permit, so the trigger is being more than 15% impervious. We don't believe that list of chemicals, descriptions of spill containers, or hazardous wastes are applicable, as again, we're only talking about impervious coverage, and the use of this building doesn't require any of these. Dan can speak to that more at his, when it's his turn. As far as plan showing location where hazardous materials and flammable materials and hazardous waste are in the building, there is none. So we again don't believe that is applicable to the impervious permit. And again, it talks about typical profiles for spill containment. Again, not applicable to this particular one. Where it does become applicable is it talks about evidence of DEP approval for waste treatment of over 15,000 gallons a day. We can stipulate right now there is not going to be waste treatment of over 15,000 gallons a day. Moreover, all the buildings are on sewer. So we don't believe that that would be applicable to this particular special permit because we're not going to be using that sort of system. Again, for underground, it wants to know, the bylaw wants to know about the underground storage of toxic or hazardous materials. Again, stipulate right now that there will be no underground storage of hazardous materials or toxic materials either. So, while applicable, we're stating right now for the record it's just not going to happen. It certainly could be a condition of approval. Number 10, basically engineering reports to demonstrate compliance with the Massachusetts stormwater policy. So again, we have met all of the requirements for the SWIP, for the operation and maintenance plan. Eric, of course, will talk to it. Neil, I believe, excuse me, Carl, you actually reviewed it as part of the conservation process, probably ad nauseum. And so again, we would submit that we do meet all of those, and as part of this, part of the application, we submitted a technical memorandum signed by a professional engineer from Narragansett Engineering, as required by the bylaw, certifying that there won't be any degradation to the watershed as a result of this particular project. And for your convenience, there's a copy of that at the end of your booklets. I'm sure if we didn't, there's 6 copies of the application. Talks about phasing of earth removal and replacement. Again, any earth removal whatsoever is going to be done in accordance with the approved site plan. And as only one building addition is being considered as part of this project, there is not phasing, it's all gonna be done at once. So it's not like they're gonna build half a building and build the second. So this is basically considered, I guess, a one-phase application. And number 12 talks about analysis by a technically qualified expert, such as a registered professional engineer, certifying that the integrity of the underlying groundwater resources will not be degraded. With respect, I would submit this is actually probably the most important of the criteria for an impervious coverage special permit. And again, you have a copy of the memorandum signed by a principal of Narragansett Engineering, certifying the same. And again, Neil can talk to that, or Eric, should you have questions. Bylaw also requires that basically there are four, maybe five standard special conditions should you see fit to issue the special permit. Five, pardon me. So the first one is that proper reasonable surface drainage of land shall be provided during and after construction. At the risk of repeating myself, but very briefly, the SWIP, the site plans themselves, and the conservation process have already addressed that, and once the order of conditions is recorded at the Registry of Deeds, that is binding pretty much until someone goes back to the Conservation Commission and asks to change it, should that ever happen. So that's as close to in perpetuity as you can get. The second one is the previous areas that have been compacted by heavy machinery shall be scarified to a depth of at least 6 inches before topsoil is replaced. Again, we will stipulate that this construction project will be, this construction practice will be used at this project. So it's going to be a condition anyways, but nonetheless, we're cognizant of it and have no problem therewith. As far as activities ancillary to the excavation, talking about basically storage of lubricants, fuel solvents, and other chemicals associated with earth removal operations being prohibited. Again, we have no problem with this. We're stipulating now that there won't be any action, any of these activities, and there won't be any non-routine vehicle maintenance, et cetera, associated with the construction of this. There won't be any non-routine maintenance, period. There are 2 vehicles there, and they will continue to remain, but that's not really what this criteria is talking about. As far as the fourth one goes, it talks about fill material. I'm not anticipating needing to bring any fill material on. There will be sub-base for the parking lot. There will be a dense compacted stone base underneath the slab, but these, again, are process materials, not landfill. And we would stipulate that the testing thereof is probably not necessary. We would, not stipulate, we would ask that it be found that it's not necessary for these particular materials. Again, in other projects where you have mounds of literally fill, I totally understand the intent behind this. That's not what we have on this project. And then the last is talking about periodic inventories of toxic and hazardous materials. We would respectfully submit that the requested special permit only deals with impervious surfaces, and as such, that particular criteria is not applicable to the project in front of you. With that, I'm not sure if you prefer to hear from the engineer from Rolls-Royce next.
Tell you what, we'll try to help things along here. I'll read the comments, and if they, in that way, as they do in the presentation,
Sure.
then maybe they can address those too, rather than back and forth. Okay. Comment number 1, Board of Appeals has no comments as it's not before them. Conservation, I'm sorry, the Sewer and Water, they concur with the comments of the town engineer. Conservation, at the regular meeting on the 25th of September, they voted to close the hearing, and I heard that you guys got an order already, correct? Okay. Can't like this one, Phil. From the Board of Health. The Board of Health at its October 1st meeting voted unanimously they have no comments at this time.
Take it.
So I guess they don't have that standard one
They
then,
don't
huh?
have that form letter for this one.
Yeah, one more.
This isn't a house.
And, oh, boy, you're batting 1,000 here. Deputy Chief Paul Barry, the fire department has looked at the plans and offers the comments. The fire department has met with Rolls-Royce, and they incorporated their request into the submitted documents. Ooh, you're on a roll.
Easy peasy.
Ooh, good thing that the other guys are gone. Carl?
I can tell and suggest, that's all I can do
I
at
know.
times.
Carl, if you do your comments?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we delivered comments actually yesterday, and as Mr. Mackey indicated, we have reviewed this for the Conservation Commission and also delivered comments to the Sewer and Water Commission. We considered the drainage very important, especially for the special permit before you. So we went through the drainage book extensively, provided comments. Narragansett resubmitted, and really it didn't change much. As a matter of fact, the numbers look better after that, and so we're very satisfied with the drainage. The contents of the memo, I've mentioned this in summary in the memo, and the few comments that we have provided really are pretty much per the site plan review, getting the zoning summary table straight and clear. You'll hear that time and time again from myself. Some other comments, there was a note on the plans about an administrative merger, which also has zoning implications, and that actually has been addressed by Narragansett Engineering. We did comment on the lighting. There's a luminaire schedule. We wanted to make sure that the lighting requirements meet your requirements, and that the applicant was conscious of the height requirements in your specifications. And you'll also hear this constantly, we're big on trying to get these site plans to show spot grading on the handicapped accessible spaces and the route to the building. And then some comments, I'm a layout guy for construction first, so I like to see spot grades on plans that makes it easy to build. And I've also noted that what you need is signing signature blocks on the plans when they go for endorsement, and Mylars, and that the special permit decisions will actually be printed out and attached to the approved plan set. So it's almost a template for the applicant to proceed, but we're very pleased with the conditions, with the status of this plan review.
Okay, thanks, that's all. Let's see, police didn't give one, but maybe they will next time. But you're also going the same place as before. So, those are pretty easy.
Happens every now and again.
Blind squirrel.
Occasionally.
I'm not you, Phil, but just
I
in
understand.
general in these things. Okay, you guys like to present?
Sure.
Yeah, just give you a couple more details. Eric Cordes, Narragansett Engineering. Guess I'm not gonna go over everything, but, parking existing is 145 spots on the site. We're proposing to add 22 spots. The current parking is a little bit tight. When you go there, pretty much everything would be full, so we're adding 10 for the employees and another couple more spots to make it more convenient for everybody. You get the main entrance for this portion of the project comes off of Norfolk Street, comes down in, we added the 20-foot fire lane around the outside of Hammerhead, for them to turn back around and get back out. There's an area in here for their large delivery trucks to be able to come in and make that turning maneuver. Right now, they kind of do it out here, and it's kind of very convoluted, so we're bringing it down into the site. Trying to stay out of the 25-foot no-cut buffer. The structures are outside of the 100-foot buffer. There is retention basins within the 100 feet, and some of the paved areas. As far as the stormwater, in our meetings with town staff early on in the project, they brought up the question about flooding in the area here of Norfolk Street. So instead of just meeting the requirements of the stormwater manual where you did not exceed the 100-year storm, we actually improved upon it, so that we got this basin and this portion of the project. I'll just back up a second. Stormwater in the area of concern, the area that this addition is going in, is currently basically half of it's going toward this corner of the site, the other half is going to this side toward, which ends up going under Norfolk Street. So this basin here, we did a reduction of 70% of the peak and 30% of the volume at a 100-year storm. And then this basin over here, we have 50% reduction in the peak and 32% reduction in the volume. So, kind of a measurable improvement over existing conditions. So that was kind of a priority. And the other benefit of that is that we're increasing the infiltration from current conditions from pre to post. So we're adding that runoff that's being reduced is being put back into the aquifer. This area here, the way down area, the shed here is for storage of two of the machines for moving the parts around, and also for several dumpsters, get that under cover. There is a fence that goes around the way down the area for security. There's Knox boxes for emergency access at different gates. You can't really see this area from Norfolk Street, but this road, this layer of fence is gonna have the green woven into it as a visual screen as well. Any questions?
You guys, is that the presentation?
Just like Dan to give a brief overview of what they're actually doing here. I think my explanation was a good enough overview, but I could see there were a lot of questions.
I've been working on this for a while, and I could talk for hours, and you don't need that.
No. Okay, the microphone?
Sure. If I need it, not, thank you. Yeah, my name's Dan Reddick from Rolls-Royce. I'm the head of naval operations for our business. And the way our business works is essentially we take propulsion equipment back from the Navy, and we go through a teardown process, and we actually clean and inspect those parts, and then make a presentation back to the Navy about what we recommend they do with those components. We may repair them, we may scrap them and buy new ones, but this building is really about to tear down one piece of that process. So today, we're currently tearing. Today, we're doing our build and our tear down all in this space here. And some of the new equipment that we're gonna be working on, the water jets for the LCS crafts. And we've been producing the OE equipment for quite a while. It's now coming to the point of the life cycle. We're actually gonna start sending them back, just like all of our controlled pitch propeller hubs have done for the last 30 years, to start tearing those down and refurbishing them. While we do half of that work up here today, the other half is done in Mississippi. When we overhaul it, because we have the engineering resources here and the expertise, we want to bring that whole unit here to inspect, tear down, and then disposition, which is why we need the new building space. So the water jet assembly itself is much bigger than anything we do today in this existing building. The other thing that happens today is in the manufacturing space we do have where we machine our blades, we actually transport those between this building and this building every time they need measured. You can imagine on a forklift in the middle of winter with a big heavy blade, that's not ideal for our people. So within the new space, we're actually moving the CMM that sits here up to the new building so that our machining and our measurement happen in the same building. We eliminate that transportation between the buildings, make it safer for our employees. So at a high level, and I would welcome anyone that would ever like to visit, show you what we do in town here. But it's a pretty neat little business. We keep our sailors safe. So.
All right. And thanks for that. I kind of knew what you'd done. I didn't realize you did the propulsion jets now, but yeah.
Yeah, the LCS jets are, it's the biggest operational jet in the Navy. And it's like if you've ever been on a jet ski, imagine just a very big version of that can drain a Olympic-sized pool in 5 seconds. So, there's 4 of them on the ship.
Yeah, okay, and just my own information, what other navies do you do? I know it just ain't us, right?
So it's largely the U.S. Navy.
Yeah.
We do a very little bit of collaboration with South Korea.
Yeah.
We historically will, we don't have anything right this second, but we will work with like the UK.
Yeah.
But it's 95% or more US. We support, we've been sole source on all the amphibs and destroyers, since Bert Johnson was here in the early 70s. So every controllable fish propeller system that goes on a destroyer or an amphibious ship, for the Navy comes from us. Living here in Walpole is one of the most brilliant people I've ever met on propulsion equipment. Our chief engineer is a local resident here, and Mr. Lonnie, yeah, he's fabulous. So.
Okay, yeah, I know a bunch of people worked, and I know one of the things years ago, talking about trying to bring one of the props up from Mississippi, and it was just so big, you guys had to, take it apart to bring it, right?
Yeah, we, one's in Mississippi supports all of our castings. And they also make some large fixed pitch propellers that would go on the carriers that are produced down in Norfolk. But they get so big, they actually come on tilt trucks, so you can't lay it down flat, so they actually put them up at angles to, be able to transport them on the highways.
Okay, any more questions of the Bird Johnson Company? Or Rolls, I'm sorry, I'm going back too far. Rolls Royce, I go back to Bird Machine is a whole separate entity in this. Show you how
Very
long.
separate.
Yes, been around. Okay,
Thank you.
the question, okay, since we have people in the audience, before I turn over to us, I assume you're here for this. Do you have any questions or comments?
My name is Glenn Stewart, we live at 38
Can you-
Do you wanna get on TV? You can watch yourself later.
The only question I had was, somebody mentioned light poles, and I was wondering if the light poles that they'd be putting in would be the same height as whatever's there at this point.
There's some on the buildings and some light poles in the parking lots. The parking lots are at 15 feet.
So
So they'll-
we've never seen any light from,
There'll be cutoff fixtures that aim the light down, so dark sky compliant.
yeah, you guys are right behind us, so I've never seen any light, so as long as they're no higher than what's there, we're fine.
You have anything else? Are you all set? Okay, thanks. John?
I have a question. You note that, complete list of all chemicals, pesticides, fuels, potentially toxic things. If you're tearing down this equipment, I'm assuming there's some chemicals involved in cleaning it, aren't there?
When we clean, we generally use some, mild mineral spirits. We'll have a tank for that. But we don't have to use any, anything else more.
It would be good to use the microphone.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Nobody will be able to hear it at home. It's,
Sorry.
the microphones are not for us here, but it's for people watching at home, so.
Yeah, no, so the cleaning process, you know, if there is any sea life or if there's anything that we need to remove, we can use some mineral spirits, but we don't use any harsh chemicals beyond that.
Huh. Okay. I was curious of the hours of operation. Is that going to change in any way, or what's the current hours? Do you expect them to change in any manner?
Today, we work a two-shift operation, so we generally start 5 in the morning and work till 11 or midnight, depending on if we work a little overtime. I don't anticipate that changing now. We don't have any plans to go to a full third shift at this point in time.
Okay. So, truck traffic delivering and anything, is that restricted to particular hours at all, or?
It's almost always on first shift. I don't remember that we've ever had a truck come in after 6 o'clock at night. Because of the special lifts and the size of the equipment, we prefer to have a certain crew there when
Daylight.
we're taking things off trucks.
Okay. Those are the only points I'm thinking of right now.
You had noted that the solid waste was entirely undercover. Is it, just for clarification, is it inside or is it a three-way, you know?
It's open on 3 sides.
Okay,
So, Yeah, there's a, basically a lean-to shed coming off the side of the building, so we'd be undercover there.
Okay. And the fence only goes around really the back half of the building. You had noted that was for security reasons. There's no issue with the front half? It's just a,
No, this is for, security of the materials. There is some material storage outside,
okay,
so they wanna keep people from wandering through it.
okay, that makes sense.
The blades are this tall, you don't want it to tip over and land on somebody's safety and security.
And then I think this is I can answer myself, but there's no signage or anything notated anywhere on the plans. The only thing I saw that might require it were the new parking spaces, but, am I correct in saying there's no new signage
There's no
or?
new signage, no, but, and it is a little note on one of the plans, we do have the existing signage noted on the existing conditions plan,
Okay,
but they're pretty minimal.
all right, that's all I had.
So, on the new parking spaces, is there any landscaping there? I didn't see any on the chart, the diagram, but maybe I missed it. Yeah.
We had a landscape plan is, we had some landscaping, between the other commercial buildings back here, because there is gonna be some vegetation removed in that setback area. And then we had some vegetation kind of in that buffer, next to the buffer zone by the wetlands, basically.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that meets our requirement for, we require 10% of landscaping if you have more than 6 parking spaces.
As far as like
Aisles
aisles, like
and-
a landscaped aisle or
Yeah,
an island.
so there's a number of requirements for landscaping and depending on how
Okay.
many parking spaces.
In the LM zone?
No.
I don't remember seeing that.
It's just straight the section 8 parking lot, parking design. You can see in our bylaws.
Single line parking spots? You don't have
And any parking lot over 6 spaces, any new parking over 6 spaces.
Okay.
It's a visual thing, which maybe is not very impactful here, except for maybe
I
for
guess-
employees. But also,
Too many
you know, for
plans in front.
drainage,
I can't give you the same answer as I did before, 'cause
Yeah.
this is new parking.
yeah,
So you're absolutely correct.
yeah.
I would ask, because it's the site plan, waive anything within your jurisdiction. We'll take a look at it, but this isn't a parking area even with the employees. If it were open to the public, I wouldn't even ask.
Mhm.
Because I get it. We want parking lots in Walpole to not look like vast expanses of pavement.
Mhm.
This is literally an accommodation so that they don't have to walk all the way across the site. And I would submit that puts this in a slightly different category than, say, the 2 parking lots that you're gonna be microscopically examining on West Street.
Mhm.
So, that'll be back to the engineer to see what can be done. But, again, this is an accommodation for employees, not the public.
Okay.
So-
And maybe the town engineer can weigh in that if there's any like concerns with drainage or any, other benefits to having those landscaped areas of the parking.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I will be glad to weigh in. I'm not worried about the drainage implications, but trying to incorporate aisles with landscaping it into that design is going to be very difficult because of the circulation that is required to make that operation work, for the backing of the trucks, for the passage through to the backside, et cetera. I don't know how they would do it unless you, I guess, significantly reduced the parking and made it landscaping.
If I can add 2 cents also, when you drive by this, what you see from the street during the good weather, it's very attractive, it's very green. So it's not like you see a big,
Yeah, they do.
Wall parking.
yeah,
They do spend
it's,
some money on the
it's very
landscaping.
attractive out front from the street from what's visible. So I personally wouldn't be opposed to waiving that, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I'd probably not be opposed either, I guess, in that situation. No other questions?
Yes, go ahead.
Are they wet basins or dry basins, the two basins?
Dry,
They're dry, okay.
yes.
But that's, so there's enough infiltration in the ground that
Yes.
you don't anticipate they're gonna back up?
Yep.
Then I had a question on sheet C-102, actually it's in a couple places.
Yep.
There's a red, I wasn't sure if that's the
There was,
it's in red instead of.
Yeah, I had that same
changes.
question.
the red cloud there.
Yeah,
For the Conservation Commission, the pavement was slightly, the layout was slightly different. We made a change between Conservation Commission and submission of the planning plans to accommodate the truck turning movement in this area. We didn't add any pavement, we just reconfigured that spot.
so
So
does this
that's a-
represent the line where vegetation then?
This, no, it's a revision cloud.
Revision cloud, oh,
Yes.
I see, because you changed something.
We changed
Changed
something, we
something
just
in it
wanted to identify
that you changed it.
what was changed.
Okay, and I noticed you changed the walkway, you moved the
No,
walkway
we
a
just,
little bit?
we did have to move the walkway because of the basin construction
Oh, okay.
that's
uh-huh.
going on there.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Just relocated that in that area of the basin.
And then the drainage in the back, and I noticed it's fairly high, right behind the property there. Is all the water been flowing into the property pretty well, either the basin or is there?
Right now, the groundwater flows, or surface water. Right now, the surface water is flowing in this direction, okay, so we're gonna be taking this and putting it into the basin, and then having the discharge there. And then this portion of the site flows in this direction.
So there's not an increase of the water that's flowing in that left corner off the property?
We're actually decreasing.
Decreasing, that was the 70% you mentioned, or?
70% in the peak, and this one's a 50% in volume,
Yeah.
and then the other one's a 30% reduction in volume.
And then, you are very close to the other, the water. Has the other buildings ever flooded in?
The buildings do not
No,
flood.
do not flood, there's not, it's not, never been a problem then, or?
Yep.
Yeah. I think those were the major things I had. What was the administrative merger? If you said it was settled, but what was it?
At the beginning of the process, there was a question of whether or not we needed, there's actually two properties here that Bird Johnson owns and controls, now it's Rolls-Royce Marine. So we weren't sure if we needed to combine them together or not, but it was decided that was not a requirement.
Let me clarify, Rolls-Royce is a big company, things don't necessarily start in Walpole. So we had a bunch of folks in Indiana go, you have 2 lots here, you can't possibly do this project. If you look at the Walpole zoning bylaw, like it said for decades and decades, if 2 lots are held in common ownership and are contiguous, they can be treated as the same for zoning purposes. So this site actually kind of came in and out of the town of Walpole, believe it or not, through tax takings and whatnot. So Bird Johnson owned the front and then acquired the back piece. So they have it by 2 deeds. And Rolls-Royce is now acquired Bird Johnson, so Rolls-Royce now has it by the 2 deeds. So by our zoning bylaw, we can leave well enough alone as long as they're continuous common ownership, they can be treated as one, so there is no administrative merger, which isn't usually a term of law in the state. We would have had to either do an 81X plan, just saying this is the boundaries, or come before your board with an A&R and say we want to actually merge 2 lots. But again, per our zoning bylaw, we can treat this as one, and to Jack's point, it's all one lot, even though it's 2 lots. So that's
My last question is on the, where the fire road is on the,
Yep.
on the backside. So there's a gate there, so is that intended that firefighters could go there?
No,
or
that's
just
more for
okay.
maintenance.
And there's no requirement then to have the fire lane go the whole length of the
No.
building?
No, there's not, and actually, we're not even technically required to bring it this far, but, this is the maximum you're allowed to have as a dead end, so that's what we put in.
Okay.
So we gave the fire marshal more than what they were asking for.
Yeah, thank you.
So,
Okay, just real quick on the two lots, are you speaking on the site that we're looking at, or you mentioned there was another
No,
lot on
this
Renmar?
site we're looking at is actually 2 deeded parcels.
Oh, okay, okay,
The lot line runs roughly like this.
okay,
Back part having been acquired after the frontage, basically.
okay. So, one of the first things that I just wanted to suggest is kind of related to that. So on this cover sheet, we should have a site plan, a note on the nature of the project. It's a, a building addition, parking, a legal description of the property, all the things that are in the bylaw. Complete dimensions and area, the zoning classifications, and the notation that it's water resource protection, area 3, the assessor's map and lot numbers, name and address of property owner and applicant, parcel lot lines, locus plan, kind of like your other client,
We will go back through the bylaw and we'll make sure
So we-
everything is on the cover.
So it's a proper cover, so when somebody picks up the set, we know what you're proposing here.
You want all that information on the cover sheet, or you want the cover sheet?
Most of it, I mean, I think that the zoning classification maybe could go somewhere else, but I agree with, what Carl had said. You don't need to write it 4 times, and just consolidate it into one schedule and just show us what you've done. So on the plans, you mentioned that you would, you agreed to provide line of sight, but has that been added to the plans? You requested
Yeah,
to
there's
waive the
a-
traffic,
there's a-
but,
There's a 400-foot, it's
She
more than
has-
400 feet on each.
You did the measurements, but are they on the plan is what she's asking.
yeah,
Are they on the plan? I can't remember.
I would say that's a no.
okay. Can you add that to the plans?
Absolutely.
And the details on the signage, maybe this is just a preference, but to Katie's point, she didn't notice it. I find it better to put those in the back instead of, I think you have them on one sheet down on the bottom.
Yep.
You can add the details to the back. That's where people are gonna go look for them. And regarding the hazardous or toxic materials, I understand the new building addition is not going to generate, hazardous materials there. But this is, for the site, and I'm guessing that if you have hazardous materials, it's something that you report to the town twice a year or
No,
whatever it is?
This
No?
far predates every regulation we have, the manufacturing use. So we've contended that this is a grandfathered use and we're not touching that.
So you're not willing to share with the town what hazardous material you're keeping at that site?
File our hazardous waste
We
with
filed
the
with
state.
It's not part of this application. It really isn't. This is impervious coverage and site plan.
Yeah, but you're in a water resource
I understand that.
protection area.
but We've been there before. It was a water resource protection area. Legally, this is a grandfathered use, or that part is a grandfathered use. This new building is not. So if we were putting hazardous materials, I would agree 100%. We'd have to file for a special permit to have greater than household use. Absolutely.
Well, I would like to see it, and I think we should ask for it, but I'll see what the other members say. regarding the site circulation, can you just, someone go over the site circulation, how you get from Norfolk Street and throughout the property?
There's two ways to get into the property, from Norfolk Street.
Uh-huh,
There's a access drive here,
okay.
and then there's one at the, so basically both ends of the property. So right now, employees can come on either side, serving this area, they drive in here and park in this area.
Uh-huh,
Expanding it to two areas, and then adding in, the truck moving area in the middle here, and then fire truck access, serve that portion. The other buildings have fire truck access around this area, serve the back side of this building, around there and out.
mm-hmm,
And there's a service entrance on this portion of the building as well, where trucks can back in.
okay. Can you more clearly show that on the plans, the site circulation of the driveways and widths of the pavement?
Okay.
So that we can see that there's safe access throughout the site?
Yeah.
Okay. Regarding the parking, can you add dimensions to the plans of this, both the stall and the aisle width? The stall width and length and the aisle widths?
It's on a detail sheet, let me check.
I think there's a note, but I'm not sure that that note is consistent throughout all the parking.
The handicap, yeah, we got the detail, it's on C 104. The handicap detail in the parking. The proposed is 9 by 18.5. The existing parking spaces may vary slightly from the regulation.
Okay, and the aisle widths?
Yeah, the aisle width doesn't meet the regulation, but we can put that on there as well.
The new parking doesn't meet the
The new
regulation?
parking meets the aisle width.
Okay, okay, okay. And then regarding the old parking, I know you're not focused on that, but can you just put numbers? You've stated that you have 145
Yep.
spaces, but I'm unable to really verify this. I mean, I don't know, maybe it's difficult to verify that, so if you could just help us out and kind of put some counts on some
Sure.
of the parking, just so we can,
Yeah, that's
See the
on C
things.
104, you probably can't read it on 11 by 17.
yeah. I
So
mean,
can,
we've got some high powerful magnifying
You get
glass over here.
You get a full-size sheet,
Maybe
you
I
get a full-size sheet.
Yeah, but specifically on the new parking, so you say you've added 22 spaces, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, can you just point out where that is and how you get that number?
Well, a full-size sheet.
I'm asking because I count 20, so I'm not able to identify two of them. Show me where those are. Oh, maybe that's it. Yes, that's probably it. You have two parallel spots?
Yes.
Okay, I missed those.
Yeah,
You got some across the road too, it looks like.
Those are 18 and 19. Yeah.
And with the new building construction, I thought you were losing some parking spaces, but with that loss, right? Or you're not losing any?
There's a net gain.
Isn't that, okay, okay.
Net gain of 22.
Well, I know, but
We lost-
at the cut where you,
We lost some of the it was more than 145, we lost.
I see, okay, I see, okay. Now, as far as the loading and unloading, so did I understand you correctly? So the trucks will come in, where you've shown them on the parking plan 104, they will go into the building and out the other side?
They will not go in or out of the building.
Oh, okay,
They might back up to unload, I'm not telling you about that.
They can back into it, but they don't actually go through it.
okay,
So they'll back in far enough for our overhead cranes to be able to pick it up off the back of the truck and lower it off.
okay. I was just concerned about the truck turning out to that, from the building to this fire access lane around. It didn't.
Yeah, no, we did a computer
This-
analysis of that, yes.
If you were gonna ask a truck to make this turn.
Oh, no, it's not gonna make that turn.
Okay,
The trucks will not go there. That would be the forklift,
okay,
which that has a very small turning radius.
okay. And are there gonna be any pavement markings, like truck loading area?
Yes, that would be,
And that's shown on the plan?
it is shown on C-104. Again, with 11 by 17, it's really hard to see.
Uh-huh, okay,
Because it's drawn to scale. So there is hatching in there. The fire lane is delineated all the way around with
Okay.
no parking fire lane.
okay,
As well as alongside of the building here to keep people from parking in there as well.
okay. Okay. And then your landscape plan, L1.
Yep.
So can you just explain, so you have landscape that goes along the back end, but isn't that also your fire lane? So are all of those trees clear of the fire lane?
These trees are clear of the fire lane. In reality, these trees are gonna be planted more on the property line.
Okay, because they're kind of shown
Yeah.
in the
you
lane,
might just-
yeah, okay. So that will be fixed,
Yes.
okay. Carl mentioned that. So we need, just on the plans, a note that the location of the wetlands, streams, water bodies have been confirmed by Concom and the date in which it was confirmed.
Okay, that was confirmed through the NOI process. Yep. You can add that to the plan, yeah.
Okay. And last question, did I hear you correctly that you have stormwater going out onto Norfolk Street?
Not on Norfolk Street, it goes into this, goes overland into the wetland area, which there's a stream running through here.
Okay, okay, all right. I didn't think you would actually design your water to go onto Norfolk Street. Okay, that's it, thank you.
All right. Just looking at some of the homework you got, not a lot. It's-
All, I believe, is just internal plan changes.
The only thing, I'll go back to what Sarah had said about, you said, we got so you and your client should probably talk about what you wanna do, how you wanna proceed. You don't need to do it here tonight, because it's just good. So, whatever you guys think on that. So,
Regarding the hazardous waste
Yeah.
or something else, yeah?
yeah, you got that, because, Phil has advised his client, and this is the first that's come up, so they need to discuss what they think the best solution is, and come back with us.
I have a question. On the landscape plan, you have the location of the various trees and shrubs, and it looks like you have some kind of a code here, but I don't see anything that identifies what the code means. Yeah, but it doesn't tell me what ARN1 is.
Yeah, like the, right. it's-
Like, I
it's
assume
tied
these
in-
mean a particular type of tree or something,
It's tied into the planting legend.
but you don't have the lettering in there.
We can clarify that in the schedule, yeah.
Probably need to put the particular type.
Yeah, landscape architect used an abbreviation, but he didn't put the abbreviation in the planting legend.
Yeah.
So we can clarify that, yes.
That's good, because if I bid the job, oh, you know it's a plant, so you should have carried it. Well, what is it? I'm on the other side, so you gotta understand, it's like, this is what I, well, it's there, you should have known what it is. Well, he got paid to do it, I get paid to bid it. The only other, one comment I had is, you did something I've been trying to get people to do forever, and they just don't seem to want to, is cloud revisions. And I've always encouraged that, because it makes life easier for the next time they review it. Okay? We've had some people in the past who would just do it in one project in particular, many years ago, is they just cover you with paper, and they'll change this over here, oh yeah, and over here, and it doesn't look like the same. But, yeah, just by the clouds, that's something. So Kyle, when you're talking to anybody else, tell them, hey, cloud it, because, and I've always also, I don't know if you did a narrative of the changes too?
We did a written response to Carl's comments. yes.
Okay, it's,
I'm not sure the board got that,
with the narrative?
their response to my comments.
Okay.
So it was addressed to me, and I don't know that it went
Well,
passed on. but
if
I'm
they
gonna make
corrected
sure
it before
goes.
it got to us, that's fine.
No, it's a response to the comments I gave you yesterday, but I strongly agree with clouding and providing direction up sheet by sheet about what's been changed to make the re-review easier. There's actually quite a little list going here right now.
And it's not necessarily you guys, but everybody else that, because I've had guys, oh, it's on the plan. Well, you didn't tell us it changed. And as you know, we're not responsible for that, the little, so, but, nice cloud. I don't have anything else. Homework and everything else?
You got most of it. We just have to have a discussion about
Yeah,
materials.
okay, but
How long do you think it'll take you?
and we need, see, one of the things is, well, we don't meet until what? The 5th?
Seven.
That's pretty full.
Seventh is full.
7th. Bristol, right?
Bristol, what else we got? Oh, big cars.
We have big cars, we have, the trail subdivision update, we have Bristol Square, Bristol.
So all we got is Bristol Brothers, all right?
The
Big
3.
cars.
Yeah, but big cars was kinda on the wind down unless you changed something. Does that get us 14 days?
In reality, we may or may not have a discussion about hazardous materials, but the plan changes, we either did what you asked or didn't,
It's
so
3 weeks.
Carl will be able to tell you that before we even show up.
Okay, it's not a whole lot to change, it's only, what do we, Bristol Brothers are on what time?
7:15 through 7:17.
Good luck.
It's gonna be a hell of a 2 minutes.
Yeah. And when's bid cars?
7:05.
Okay. We'll put them after Bristol boys.
7:30.
We'll have everything.
Well, they're gonna be your neighbors, so you guys can
Yeah.
hold hands in there or just
Right.
whack each other, however it goes. It's all the same neighborhood. Okay. Do we need extension, Kate?
11:15, no.
No, we're good? Yeah,
We
we'll-
need 7:30 and 7:31 for the special
Yep.
permit.
Okay. We'll continue this public hearing to 7:30 and 7:31 on the November
7th?
7th. Okay?
Thank you very much.
An extension, did we do the extension?
No.
Oh, we don't need,
Through the
okay.
15th.
It's, I think it's online almost immediately.
What's online?
The audio for this, just to make sure we
Just
didn't
make sure I didn't miss.
miss any requests.
Sometimes it works,
But all that
sometimes,
time when you weren't next to the microphone, it's very difficult to hear, so.
sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, so.
Your microphones are the ones that are important for that.
Yeah.
But I don't know how long before this gets put to,
On YouTube, maybe like 30 minutes.
oh, that's right, YouTube, I forgot about that.
Yeah, we'll have it up on our website tomorrow.
Oh, okay, so either way, you can get a website or YouTube,
Great.
so you can watch a few other things on YouTube while you listen to this.
Music videos.
Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, that wraps it up. Take a motion to adjourn,
Second.
discussion? No? All in favor?
Aye.